Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I don't know how many people we have online because I don't see it. We have a full house here today, so there's quite a few people here. Garfield, thank you for hosting. Appreciate it, Carl. So good morning, everybody. It's 10:03. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call. Jennifer.
Hey, 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Nope,
I rushed
you're
you.
good. All right, good morning, everybody. CCI, Scott James, Tina Powell, Julie Nelson, or Allison P. Unison. CML, Jeremy Shepback. Accessibility, Cheryl Garcia. Can anybody hear me online?
Yes, we got you. Can you hear me? This is Ryan.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
At large, Michael Berry.
Here.
Good morning. BESP, Tressa Carter or Tim Kunkelman.
Tressa's here.
Good morning. BESP, Sean Ward, Strato. ILEC, Jeff Winkleman.
Present.
Good morning. Wireless, Jenny Santana, T-Mobile.
Good morning, this is Jenny.
Good morning. Wireless, Ryan Hoke, Fiero.
Yes, this is Ryan.
Good morning.
Hello.
CLEC, VoIP, Cindy Hartkop, Tina Medevere, or Josh Hemingway.
Cindy's here.
Good morning. CLEC, VoIP, Jay Slater or Erica Stevens with bandwidth.
Jay Slater's here.
Good morning. 911, Jody Chin, Gunnison County.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. 911, Travis Freeman, Morgan County. Or alternate Michelle Araujo. (911) Cindy Castile, Grand Junction.
Here.
Morning. 911, Kimberly Culp or alternate from LIDA.
This is Kimberly. I'm on.
Good morning. 911, Jackie Reynolds, AgCom or alternate. Good morning, Jackie. 911, Beth Sabransky, Eagle County.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning. 911, Valicia Librand or alternate from Sterling.
Belisha is here.
Good morning. 911, Jeff Irvin, Jeffco, Broomfield 911.
Jeff Irvin's here.
Good morning. 911, Renee Henshaw or alternate from El Paso Teller. (911) Deanie Shin or alternate from Douglas County.
This is Jeannie, I'm here.
Good morning. 911, Andrew Dameron, Denver.
Good morning.
Good morning. 911, Kyle Mickelson or alternate from Jeffcom. (911) Tina Bonetta or alternate from City of Aurora. 911, Kathy Rayleigh, Arapahoe County.
I'm here.
Good morning. 911, Matt Gates from Mesa.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Alex. 911, Carl Stevens, Tom Holman.
Here. Here.
Good morning. 911, Patty West or Christine from Boulder.
Patty's on.
Good morning, and you have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward. Next is going to be the approval of the May 8th, 2025 minutes. Hopefully everybody got a chance to take a look at those.
I don't know why it says May 9th. Let me correct that. Got it right.
Okay. And I will take a motion to approve those minutes.
Moved.
Moved by Carl and seconded by Andrew. Any further discussion? Okay, minutes are approved.
All right. Do we want to do introductions around the room before we start?
Yeah, we probably should. There's quite a few people in here. So should you start on that side, or, okay, we will start with you, Jeff, in the hot seat. Oh, did you just have something to eat? Sorry.
Warren, Jeff Winkleman from Lumen. Hi, my name's Tim Carlson. I'm from Lumen as well. My role is to be supporting public safety customers across the country. So Jeff's part of my team, and I have folks like Jeff based across the country. So I'm thrilled to be here. So thank you for the invitation and wonderful opportunity to have open up.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Kevin Newton, Lumen, Texas.
Jackie Louise, 911 Solutions.
Matt Gage, Metza. Alex Wall, Metza.
Boom, Datamark Technology.
Beacon Steel, Grand Junction Station Center.
Sorry, Brian Keith. Baker City of Grand Junction. Sean Kidd,
Matt Allen, Grand Junction.
Chris Stewart, Delta County Sheriff's Office.
Amber Lillard, West Coast Dispatch.
I'm Tom Holman, I'm from Garfield County Dispatch. Carl Stevens, Garfield. Andrew Dameron, Denver 911.
Michael Berry, Summit County 911.
Kathy Rayleigh, Arapahoe County 911 Authority.
Darrell Branson, Public Utilities Commission.
And Jennifer Kirkland, Public Utilities Commission. Apparently can't speak.
The one thing I'm gonna ask everybody when you talk, because I'm getting some text messages saying it's super quiet, because this phone is trying to pick everything up. So if you could please speak up, if you have something to say, so everybody can hear it.
And there are some remote mics over there too,
Okay,
in a couple places.
all right.
But probably still need to speak up.
Yeah. Next thing we have is presentations from Jennifer for the Legislative Committee 911 Leader Education.
All right. So the Legislative Committee is working on, they'd like to do a presentation to 911 leadership across the state to help educate, eventually, our legislators at the state capitol. And they put together this, make it better.
I'm just trying to close this so it doesn't block. There you go. Well, almost.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay, now we can see it. Cool. Anyway, Jackie really should be introducing this because she's the chair of the leadership, or the legislative committee. Yes, please, go ahead. It's your project.
It is my project. I appreciate that. With the legislative committee, we have come up with this program or training directed for 911 representatives. So representatives from your 911 center, your managers, and your directors. That's what this training is geared to. And what we're trying to do, and hopefully we want to start it soon, and I had a thought in my drive today, was that it would be really great if we could kind of keep a tally of who's meeting with whom, so that we kind of know what legislators have been contacted by their local 911 center. So we put together this training, so if you want to, I just wanted to present it here, so.
Sounds great. And the goal of this training is to help educate 911 leaders so that they can turn around and educate our legislators. For one of the main reasons is so that they will keep their hands off the 911 Services Enterprise Board money, and also to really educate them on how 911 works in Colorado and who the players are, and to give them a local face so that when they have 911 questions, they will come to you as your local PSAP leader and not rely on other outside sources that may not be accurate. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So the committee put together this presentation, and we will cover why engage legislators, because that's everybody's favorite thing, right, is talking to legislators, but there's a purpose. Who is 911, the challenges that 911 faces, technology projects going on, and the costs involved in the funding challenges. And the idea for this presentation is to educate the 911 leaders, but when you're talking to the legislators, as a 911 leader and as a 911 professional, we really want you to customize your presentation for your area. Because 911 is so unique all across the state, and rural 911 centers have challenges that the urban 911 centers don't. So we really want you to take this information and make it your own, so that you can educate your legislator about the unique challenges that your PSAP faces. So why do we want to do this in the first place? Well, one, we want to help our legislators understand the profession. One of the things that was evident in the last legislative session and in previous legislative sessions is that people, like most members of the public, they equate 911 with the responders that they see. They think 911 is EMS or fire or law. And yes, of course, our field responder partners are part of that, but when we talk about 911, we're talking about the people in the PSAP. So we want to help educate them when we're talking about 911. 911 is the professionals under the headset in the room, taking the calls and dispatching out the field responders. So we want our legislators to really understand the profession. And we want to personalize 911. We all know that our 911 professionals are behind the scenes, and so it's very easy to maybe not dehumanize necessarily, but not necessarily think about the human behind that phone call. And we really want our legislators to understand that 911 is made up of human beings who are taking those calls, they're affected by those calls, they're highly trained, educated professionals, and to kind of personalize 911, especially in their local area. Next, to educate legislators on 911 in Colorado. Colorado is a very unique state. 911 functions differently here than it does in a lot of other states. And so depending on where they're coming from and their level of knowledge or lack of knowledge in 911, they may be coming to us with a different understanding of 911 than what actually happens in the state. So we want to make sure that they understand how 911 operates in Colorado and what's important to 911 in Colorado. We want to highlight our technology challenges and our funding challenges in Colorado. Educate on the funding mechanisms and the variety of ways that 911 gets funded or doesn't, and to build relationships with local lawmakers, which is always a good thing. I know it can be a little bit intimidating to reach out to your legislators. You know, they're in the Capitol, they're doing big things, but really they're just human beings like we are, and we want to make sure that we're building those relationships so when they have a question about 911, they're coming to you as the local expert. And when you have a question or a need from something at the legislative level, you've already built that relationship. So who is 911 in Colorado? Again, 911 professionals are those working in a PSAP or an ECC, not field responders. Again, our field responder partners are obviously extremely important to the chain, but when we talk about 911, we're talking about the people in the PSAP or the ECC. And I think it's important to highlight that 911 professionals are highly trained in specialized skills. I mean, think about how long your training program is. We've got training programs from 6 months to 9 months to a year, and we all know that it usually takes a couple of years for a 911 professional to really be comfortable in that role, even after they're released from training. So highlighting how much specialized training your people go through and the emergency medical dispatch training and all the other specialized training that 911 needs to go through is really important to help our legislators understand why it's so important and why it's so hard to keep our 911 professionals and to keep our agencies fully staffed. That's the specialized skills that your people go through. It's also helpful to help them understand that 911 professionals come to the PSAP from all walks of life. You know, we all know that 911 professionals come to us from different agencies or different industries like customer service or retail or, you know, food service or wherever. I mean, you ask any 911 professional how they came into 911 and they have a different answer. They don't grow up saying, I want to be a 911 person unless they have parents or relatives who are in that. It's not the same as, oh, I want to be a police officer when I grow up, or, oh, I want to be a paramedic when I grow up. So they come to us from all walks of life, which makes those 911 professionals even stronger because they have experience in other professions that help inform that 911 experience. It's also helpful to teach our legislators that there are 6 pillars of public safety. Most people think of fire, law, and EMS, but in reality, there's 911, where it all starts. Law enforcement, fire, EMS, emergency management, and mental health are all of those things that go into the public safety chain. And everything starts with 911.
And the reason we kind of added the emergency management and mental health is because the legislators are very interested in funding emergency management. and mental health.
Mhm.
But we are not those things, and it's really important that we clarify and
Yeah.
help them understand the difference.
Are there other questions? Thank you, Jackie. Okay, and then helping legislators understand the differences in structure and oversight. There are 84 PSAPs in Colorado, and that means there's 84 ways of running a 911 center, and some of them are under law enforcement, some of them are under fire, some of them are standalone, some of them might be under the sheriff's office. It really just depends on how 911 is run in the local area. And sometimes it's a hard concept for people to understand because they're all like, oh, well, 911 is part of the cops. No, not everywhere. I mean, we're in Garfield County right now, and Garfield County is a standalone. 911 only does fire. No, that's not the case. And some agencies dispatch only for fire and EMS, but some agencies do all three, and some agencies dispatch for other agencies like animal control or public works, and some of them don't do that. So helping your legislator understand how 911 works in their jurisdiction is super important. And also that it doesn't work that way everywhere in Colorado. It works that way in their local. Anything else to add?
I think that's great. Thank you.
So in 2024, Colorado PSAPs handled 2,989,719 911 calls. That's a lot. And approximately 35,511 texts to 911. That number for the text is approximate because it's self-reported by data collection, and not everybody provided their numbers, so that's approximate. But the 2.9 million comes directly from Intrado's portal. That's a lot. You guys are busy. You don't need me to tell you that. Especially in summer with all the fires. Yay. Okay. So helping our 911 helping our legislators understand the challenges that 911 face, and it's really weird to be talking to 911 professionals about the challenges you face because you guys know the challenges that you face probably better than I do. But helping our legislators understand that some of those challenges are universal. I know that sometimes people come down on the 911 center and they're like, well, how come you're not fully staffed? What are you doing that you can't keep people? It's like, staffing is a profession-wide challenge. It's not just unique to XYZ PSAP. So helping them understand that some of these challenges are universal and not specific to your specific PSAP is helpful. So obviously staffing is a challenge for most PSAPs. Adequate funding can be a challenge for most PSAPs, not all, but some. And that's really an opportunity to talk specifically about how your PSAP is funded and why it's a challenge. Perception of the profession by the public and by field responders. So we in 911 still struggle with field responder leaders recognizing the professionalism of 911 employees. Sometimes our field responders like to rag on our 911 professionals and they put them down. And that level of expertise and having your field responder partners really is a detriment to the profession. So letting them know that passing the bill last year that specifically makes 911 professionals first responders is an important step. But having our field responders recognize 911 professionalism is also an important step. And we include that here because sometimes legislators will go to field responder leaders. They'll go to the police chiefs, they'll go to the fire chiefs and ask. And sometimes, not all, but sometimes, those leaders are less than complimentary about their 911 professionals. So we want to make sure that legislators understand that 911 professionals are first responders and have just as much specialized training as our field responders. Helping them understand the complex and lengthy training process. Why does it take so long to train a 911 professional? The complex things that your 911 professionals do. Talking about increasing workload without increasing staff. So when public safety wants something done on a 24/7 basis, what do they say? Dispatch will do it, right? And do they give you more personnel? No. Do they give you more funding? No. But do they expect you to do it? Yes. So I call that the piling on phenomenon, but it is a challenge because when they think 24/7 in a room, they think, oh, dispatch can do it. But there's a limit to how many tasks 911 professionals can be asked to do at any given time, and helping them understand that is important. Technology changes and advancements. We all know that Next Gen 911 is happening, AI in the comm center is happening, video and pictures to 911 is happening, the need for GIS data and why that's so important is happening. Those are all things that it's really important that the legislators understand, because those technology changes are going to come with a cost. And at some point, we may need their help in finding ways to fund that. And then the constantly updating standards. So the only thing that's constant in 911 is change, and that's true at the standard level as well. And so helping them understand that NENA and APCO are constantly updating those standards, and sometimes that translates into needs in the PSAP, is super important. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer, so, it's not a question, but maybe it is a question. So is there an opportunity for Lumen to provide help with some, like, high-level description of the technology that's in place now? Like, something that could be, shared with, your audiences that you're, working with?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Like a single page?
The chair is nodding yes, so I defer to Jackie.
You know, I think it'd be great, because as we're gearing this towards our PSAP representatives, we do want them to have handouts
Sure.
when they're talking about what's happening in 911. And just one of those graphs of how a call gets delivered will blow anybody's mind.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, especially people who are not familiar with this,
Right,
to see the complexity of what 911 is versus,
sure.
you know, the switchboard operator.
I would add,
Sorry, I'm old.
no, especially when you're talking to legislators about what Next Gen 911 is, that is just an alphabet soup to them.
Yeah.
But having a visual could really help with that. We don't want you to, tie yourself down to a specific architecture before you're ready, but, any sort of diagram or visual for that would be very helpful.
I live Next Gen 911, doing 911 for 40 years. And so I don't know what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I live this all the time, and I can recite it in sleep. But I don't know what you don't know. Well, I can put together.
Well, and it's not so much what we don't know, it's what do the legislators not know, and how do we educate them?
Target audience.
Yeah.
How much is too much before their eyes start to glaze over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Exactly.
I'll just give you my point of view for what it's worth, and I've done some legislative conversations in Washington before, and clearly the audience really doesn't understand the technology at all, but I think that's the purpose of what you're doing here, it's education. So maybe a high-level generic technology overview with a way of showing what parts are going to evolve into the future. So, as you think about important topics like you mentioned of artificial intelligence, where might you see in that architecture artificial intelligence showing up? So folks can kind of see how the future plugs into what's there now. And we could create something that's real high level and work together on, how to customize that. But happy to be a part of it.
Yeah,
I think education is really important.
I think it'd be great as a handout to.
I would also suggest that maybe part of the materials that we send out to the agencies include links to 911.gov's
Oh, yeah.
videos on what Next Gen 911 is, because they have ones that are specifically made for decision makers
Sure.
who have no background in the technology. So
Right.
it's already kind of that really high level, this is why Next Gen is important, and here's, in a very high level way what it is.
But I think it'd also be helpful for Lumen as well as all the OSPs side of the house to support that the 911 enterprise fees only be used for 911 things.
Oh, yeah.
Because last year they tried to use it for basically software for hospital to hospital, as well as a radio system, and I don't think that was the original charge. I think that would be a big support as well. I mean, I think this coming legislature, that's my biggest concern, how that money's gonna try to be stolen.
All right, thank you, Jim. So some of the technology projects, hold on, let me make that chat go away. some of the technology projects that are going on in the state, obviously NextGen 911 is a big umbrella term for everything that we're doing to try to modernize the call delivery architecture. GIS data and continuing to build PSAP and responder boundary GIS data sets is super important, and we've got a project going on with that, and of course we have our GIS series going on this summer to try and help PSAPs understand that. So thank you for being here, Deb and Lauren, for the GIS session later. Dispatch console upgrades, and by that I mean call handling equipment, which some PSAPs will need to update in order to accept NextGen 911 data call delivery, but also we all know that Motorola is requiring PSAPs to update their radio consoles, and so that's going to be a significant amount of money that will need to come from somewhere for each PSAP. Cybersecurity is also a big concern as you move call delivery and other things into the IP-based world. Cybersecurity becomes very important, and working to help PSAPs understand the high need for cybersecurity, because each PSAP becomes a gateway, a potential gateway into the system. So we need to make sure in a local control environment like Colorado is, that PSAPs understand the importance of good cyber hygiene, which also costs money. 911 translation services, which the landscape is changing in that because of transcription being offered by some call handling equipment and some recording solutions. But how that 911 translation continues to happen, and I would add that that also goes for emergency alerting going out. We know that Colorado has been very focused on language translation for emergency alerts going out of emergency management and 911 centers as well. And finally, the transition from voice calls to data alerts, which is everything from automatic crash notification to Internet of Things alerts, to medical device alerts. Thought butt dials were bad. Wait until Grandpa's heart calls you up from his pacemaker and says, hey, you need to send an ambulance to this location. It's like, wow, I'm talking directly to someone's heart. So there's a lot of technology issues coming down the pike that will all cost money. So the funding sources, one of the main funding sources is the different types of surcharges. And when you are talking to your legislators, I encourage you, if you would like, to go ahead and print out this slide as a handout, because it kind of details each type of surcharge. We have the local emergency telephone charge, which is assessed at the local level and collected at the local level. Ranges anywhere in Colorado from 70 cents to $4 throughout the state. It depends on where you are and what your authority is charging. There's an annual threshold amount that's set by the Public Utilities Commission annually for the following calendar year. So right now that threshold is $2.12, and anybody can raise their ETC up to that without any kind of application needed. And if you want to raise it above that, then you just need to apply to the Public Utilities Commission to raise that through that application process. We have the statewide 911 surcharge, which is assessed by the Public Utilities Commission and collected by DOR, Department of Revenue. Currently set at 12 cents for 2025, but it's capped at 50 cents. So it could go all the way up to 50 cents if we needed it to. That amount is also set annually by the PUC in that same surcharge proceeding. And that gets distributed back to the 911 governing bodies, and it's designed to reimburse them for their charges from CenturyLink for 911 call delivery. Obviously, there's more detail to that, but again, depending on who you're talking to, which legislator, and how much detail they want to know, that's probably the high-level detail. And we have the prepaid wireless surcharge, which may change.
Have a big conversation about that later.
Right. So prepaid wireless is assessed by the PUC and collected by DOR, just like the statewide, and it is set at $209 for 2025. That charge gets assessed at the point of sale when people buy prepaid wireless minutes or access. And that also gets distributed back to the governing bodies according to a formula based on wireless 911 call volume. So each PSAP takes a certain percentage of wireless calls as a function of the whole around the state, and it gets distributed back to them through that. The challenge that we are newly facing is that Department of Revenue issued a letter stating that if you aren't selling prepaid in minutes and instead are selling it by a monthly access, then they don't have to pay that wireless surcharge. So The legislative committee is gonna be working on that. If you're interested in knowing more about that, come to the legislative committee meetings. Yeah.
I have a question about that. What was the total prepaid charge revenue last year?
17 million.
17 million?
Yep, 17 million. That's how much was raised in 2024 from prepaid. And we don't know how much of that is at risk because of this decision from DOR, but I'm imagining it's a significant amount.
This is taken as case law, as the letter was directed at one provider.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
And since we've paused, I want to make one correction. So DOR collects the prepaid surcharge, but the PUC actually collects the state 911 surcharge directly. That's remitted to the PUC.
I'll fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is still in draft form, by the way. This is the maiden presentation. And then finally, we have the new 911 Services Enterprise, which will also be part of the statewide 911 surcharge, and it will be included starting in 2026. Again, that total cap is at 50 cents, so we would set that statewide surcharge for reimbursement levels plus whatever the 911 Services Enterprise provides as their annual budget. And those funds can be used to pay for things that are not on tariff at a statewide level and at the 911 Services Enterprise discretion according to state and SEC rules governing the use of 911 funds. And we do have a few members of the Enterprise Board here in the room, so I would just pause to see if you guys wanted to add anything else. Nothing like putting you on the spot.
I'd say that covers it for now.
No further conversation.
Hard at work.
And that needs to be updated too. Sorry.
Okay.
That needs to be.
Fix it.
Got it.
Awesome. Other funding sources can be user agency or field responder agency fees that are paid to the PSAP for dispatching services. Some agencies in Colorado have special taxing district revenue or other funding sources that, again, are unique to different places in Colorado. So it'd be really hard to capture all the different other funding sources. And so we leave other there as a bucket for you to, again, let the legislator know how your agency receives its funding.
And I think an important point there is that county and city budgets frequently are a major source. You know, they're filling in a lot of the gaps. So if there isn't money coming from surcharges, that's money that directly has to be paid by local government, which is something that the legislators should be very aware of.
And with that, that's why this is in this slide. So when you as a representative are talking to your legislators, you could put together your budget maybe in a pie chart. This is how much the county pays, this is how much the city pays, this is how much is user fees, this is how much is 911, so that they have an idea that 911 doesn't fully fund 911. And I think that's very important. I mean, does anybody fully fund 911 with 911 fees? Anybody? I didn't think so. I just want to make sure before I made that statement.
Make sure to include everything, because
Yeah.
a lot of times those costs are hidden.
Your utilities, your
IT support,
HR,
facilities, maintenance, yeah, utilities, all of that stuff.
yeah.
HR, you said that.
So this is the part where people's eyes really glaze over because it's statute and rules and citations. Oh, Kimberly, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so this may be a good time to go back and talk a little bit about the local surcharge. So some of our meetings from the CCOA, when we talk about the local surcharge, and I know we have the big range and that's set by the local agencies, and it's come up a few times in the report that is submitted to the legislators, and the legislators will ask a lot about the local surcharge. The 911 authorities and the CCOA members, we like our local surcharge. We need our local surcharge, and we really would appreciate not having the local surcharge called out as being a problem. We don't believe it's a problem, and having the range of how we set the surcharge, we don't believe that's a problem, and we're not receiving complaints from our community members as it being a problem. And so we just wanted to make sure that we bring that up as being a positive for our community members of having that local 911 surcharge and having that ability to be set and as a streaming funding source that we have.
Well, I think it's, the nice thing about this particular presentation is that this particular presentation is just educating the 911 leaders. When the 911 leaders turn around and talk to their legislators, you can customize your presentation for your legislator however you want. So if that's something that's important to you as a 911 leader, that's totally within your prerogative to bring up. And Jackie's got her hand up.
I do have a thought on that, Kimberly, and that was a good point and a good thought. I think, as we're, educating our PSAP leaders to put together their information, it might be really helpful to show how much is funded through their ETC, and then what versus maybe the statewide. They could separate it out in that manner so that the legislators could see in a visual chart that the ETC does fund the center. And then the state surcharge is a supplement to that, prepaid as a supplement, that kind of thing. And so that you could break out your funding sources in this chart, not just 911 funds, but break them out in those different categories. What do you think about that, Kimberly?
Well, and I think it's going to be really important as we're setting the 911 folks up to go and talk to legislators that they need to be prepared for that, because it's been brought up in many different settings about local surcharge and the disparate fees that have been set, $4 here, $2 here, 70 cents there. So we want to have them set up for success, that it's not a problem, that what Aspen is charging is because the price of a Coke in Aspen is a lot more. The price per square foot, the price to support a PSAP costs a lot more than it may cost Weld County, that it may cost Larimer County. And so we want to make sure that we're setting up our peers in the 911 community for success and not setting them out to the wolves. And because it's been presented in the state as that local surcharge and those rates are a problem because they're different. And there's a reason why they're different. And it's not a bad thing. And again, we're not fielding complaints from community members that it's a bad thing. From the CCOA perspective, our members are not. And we, again, really support having that local surcharge. So this is a presentation and it's great talking points, but I just want to make sure that we do support and we appreciate, and we want to make sure that our members are set up for success and not going to be fighting and trying to be on the defensive on that.
That's a really good point. We'll make sure we add it to the presentation. Andrew?
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I really appreciate that perspective, Kimberly, and that's actually the first time I have heard that perspective, because it's always been kind of relayed to me that the increase in cost in Aspen is not because Coke is more expensive or just the cost of doing business is more expensive. It's because tax base, permanent tax base, does not match their call volume because of tourist traffic. So how do we reconcile that? Because that is a problem that we've got to solve.
Yeah,
Kimberly, I'll say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say, as far as the state of 911 report goes, that's a report from the PUC to the legislature. When we do draft that every year, we send it out for comment. We will try to be sensitive to that argument. I think there is also a concern among the legislators as well as the commissioners that the rural areas, generally speaking, not in all cases, but the rural areas are paying more for 911 service from the citizens, in terms of their emergency telephone charge, for similar service, or sometimes even service that has maybe fewer capabilities than are found in the urban areas. But I think we can be sensitive to the perspective of the local agencies that don't see that as a problem, and kind of speak to both sides of the issue. And when we do send that out for comment, that would be an opportunity to provide us some feedback on that. I can't guarantee that we will use all of that feedback, but I can say that we will read all of it and try to be sensitive to that issue. But as far as this presentation goes, this is about you talking to your own legislators, in which case you can present your specific perspective on that however you like.
But I think it might be good to give people a heads up that this may be something that asked about or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about people that may not have that experience dealing with, so, landmines may be a good thing to address too.
Well, and when there are competing narratives, even just internally
Yeah.
within us, like that's something that we need to make sure we all at least understand why those competing narratives exist, so that we can speak competently to legislators who are also good.
Absolutely. Let's add a slide. Jennifer, we'll make a note and add a slide that addresses this. And yeah, you know, I also came from Summit County, and you had 20,000 residents and 500,000 beds, you know? And so, yeah, there was a big disparity in what fees were collected through 911 versus the population that swells the call volumes.
I agree that the reasons for the differentials are all valid. But I think part of Kimberly might also be getting at is a high 911 emergency telephone charge may be that community's choice in how they choose to cover those costs, as opposed to higher user agency fees paid to a dispatch center. It's that community's decision through their 911 authority, often comprised of their governing bodies and representatives. That is their choice in which pathway they want to come up with the money necessary for the service.
As opposed to doing like what Steamboat is now doing, is adding a hotel booking.
Right, it's just how that local community chooses to pay for these costs, right? And look at where we're sitting, right? There's a pretty unusual funding source that Carl has, that most of us don't have, when it gets a community decision through their representatives.
And I think Tina's got a hand up online.
Hi, everyone. I'm not even sure my point is relevant anymore because there's been such good conversation. But really beginning with Kim's comment, I agree. I think that it's so important for our legislators to understand the formula that goes into the existence of 911 services. So, and whether or not we're saying it's a hierarchy of state surcharge supplementing the local or vice versa, but that when we're calculating these things, it's a delicate balancing act between what we have in general fund, what we have in local surcharge, and what we're receiving from the state to be able to predict and plan how we can provide services. And so stability in those areas is essential for us. And I completely agree that you know, looking at all the metrics to have the big picture, right? So you have your you have your tax base in your communities, but then you have call volume and you have calls for service. So for people with high tourism levels, those are going to matter. And I think if we can bring it all together in a single snapshot and give everyone guidance on how to do that, then I think it can unify the message that we're trying to relay.
Absolutely. We'll work on a slide and try to get people to get the representatives of 911 centers to be able to gear their presentation again with a visual pie chart that outlines everything and why they do it locally the way they do it. So that the local legislators will know when they're on the floor what their 911 center has to go through. Because right now it feels like the legislators really do not know what their local 911 centers are actually doing. And that's really kind of the point of this presentation, because I would like to get everybody, PSAP managers, representatives, directors, on the ground running with this as soon as possible, because we are going to have, Carl said, we are going to have quite the session coming up. And as your legislative committee chair, I appreciate all the help I can get.
All right, thanks, Jackie. Oh, Jeff, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll check to make sure, but a thought came to mind, how we can help with this in addition to, what Jim had said about, I think somebody put a fifth grade diagram. I like that idea. I'll work on checking with Tim and Tressa to see if they have a way to work with, legislators or our lobbyists to be able to, for that education.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we have Reed's hand. I
Oh.
think Tina's is still Reed's from before.
Okay.
I think it's Joe.
Tina, I think your hand is still up, probably from before, so I'm gonna let Joe
Okay.
go ahead.
Thanks, I'm driving. I'll try to get it down.
No problem. Joe?
Joe, if you're speaking, you're muted.
Joe can't hear you, Joe.
Or are you speaking telepathically?
Yeah. Having a really strong thought right now.
That new AI.
Well,
His hand went down.
I was gonna say,
Okay,
I'll just pause when Joe is able to speak.
there you go. I
Okay.
think you're good to move forward, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the FCC has rules on acceptable expenditures of 911 fees, and it is, 47 CFR Part 9, Subpart 1. I don't know about everybody, some people really want those rule numbers there. My eyes glaze over when I read it, and that's my job, so. Anyway, for your legislators who want to know, well, why can't we spend 911 money on EMS software? Well, the FCC says there are acceptable expenditures of 911 fees or charges, and it's limited to the support and implementation of 911 services. Again, going back to 911 means inside the PSAP, and operations expenses of PSAP. So by that FCC definition, clearly, software to manage hospital bed usage in hospitals does not support 911 services. There are consequences that the FCC has for 911 fee diversion. So any state or jurisdiction that engages in fee diversion will be reported to Congress by the FCC, and such states are ineligible to participate in FCC advisory committees and may be banned from receiving federal grant funds related to 911 technology. So there is not federal grant money right now for 911, but in the future, if Colorado were to be designated as a fee diverter, we would be ineligible for those grant money, which is kind of a big deal. I mean, not kind of, it's a really big deal. So we want to make sure that our legislators aren't inadvertently putting us in a position in the future where we would not receive that grant money.
And how much was the last federal grant we received?
Approximately $6 million.
Good chunk of change.
Yeah. So Colorado state statutes and rules follow the FCC rules and generally states that 911 funds must be used to fund 911 related expenses and not field responder expenses. The cost can be hard to quantify. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's difficult to estimate the full cost of providing 911 because so many PSAPs are housed under municipal or other agencies, which mask the cost of things like HR services, building-related costs, and others. What?
I just put it on.
Yeah. But the estimated cost of providing 911 statewide, as we've reported in the past to the FCC, and I say estimated because these costs that we're reporting to the FCC are based on responses from the governing bodies to our data collection. Not all agencies who respond to our data collection include their total cost information. So it's extremely likely that the estimated costs that we have here are much higher, especially for 2024. But you can see that the costs continue to increase year over year.
Joe just sent in chat, I understand one of the purposes of the enterprise is to help constrain the disparity in front range and rural emergency telephone charges and support minimum levels of service statewide. We have seen attempts by the legislature to use enterprise funds for other purposes. If we want to ensure enterprise funds are available for purpose of constraining disparity in ETCs, we need to explain that purpose.
Okay. Thank you. So, again, these are some funding challenges that are faced by agencies in the state. These may not all apply to your agency. And again, when you are talking to your legislator, we want you to tailor your presentation specifically for the funding challenges that you face, but it's also helpful to understand what challenges are being faced by other agencies across the state. So, and these challenges are not all problems necessarily. It's just challenges, right? So the fact that a lot of the funding is local and it varies from entity to entity, ETC can present a challenge in areas with small populations and/or high seasonal populations, which don't pay the ETC to the area. So we just had that conversation in places like Steamboat or Eagle County or Summit County, which have high tourist populations that put a strain on the system but aren't paying into the system. Funding decisions are not always made by those with 911 expertise. That's a very broad statement that you can take and use to your specific situation. That might not be an issue in your area. Necessary technology advances increase the cost of 911 services. So remember when we were talking about the updating of standards, those standards and the resulting equipment that is needed to meet those standards are going to cost money. Personnel costs are not fully understood by those making funding decisions. So again, those who hold the purse strings don't always understand the value of a 911 professional or how much they should be paid or how many 911 professionals it takes to run the 911 center efficiently and so on and so forth. Personnel training costs can outstrip the agency's ability to provide it. We talked a lot about attempts to use the 911 services enterprise funding for ineligible expenses. We want to make sure the legislators allow the 911 services enterprise to get experience and to demonstrate the impact that can be made on existing funding challenges. Wow, I didn't even touch the computer. Anyway,
There.
there we go. Technology.
How'd you fix it?
I moved the mouse. I put my magic hands on it, that's how. But we want the enterprise board to get some years of experience under its belt and to demonstrate, hey, with these funding opportunities, we can maybe make an impact on some of these other funding challenges, but let's see how it goes. And finally, 911 services enterprise funds are meant to assist PSAPs with expenses and not our field responders for all the reasons that we've already talked about. So in closing, the key points that we want you, when you're talking to your legislators, to make sure that you make is that 911 funding should not be used to backfill state budget shortfalls or for anything other than uses specifically identified in the rule and statute. Use an emotional approach to selling 911 to the legislators. If funding for 911 is decreased due to appropriating that funding to a state-funded project, what are the consequences for 911? How would losing 911 funding in your area affect your PSAP? How is it going to affect their constituents if your funding is decreased? What things would 911 be unable to pay for without those funds? Is it personnel? Is it needed technology upgrades? Is it facilities? Whatever it is that would detrimentally affect your 911 PSAP from the loss of those funds, make it personal for those legislators. So when they're going to their committee meetings and they're considering bills that come up, they can say, I want to fight for my 911 center because if I don't, this is going to happen to my constituents. Personalize your center as much as possible. Offer a tour, spotlight a couple of your employees and their hard work and accomplishments. It's always a good thing to, again, humanize and personalize your people for the legislators. When they can tie a face to that 911 center and they're like, wow, this is going to affect Louie that I just met over here, that's powerful.
Or a call that you needed something that you didn't have.
And maybe, ask the audience who you're talking to, do they have a 911 experience personally?
Yeah.
Like, how were they helped by it? Their family member, themselves, somebody they know, really personally.
Yeah, good point. And also, while these are challenges, we're not necessarily looking for legislative assistance. And this, kind of maybe goes back to what Kimberly was trying to say. We're not necessarily looking at this time for legislators to fix anything that we're talking about. We just want to make sure that they understand the challenges. Differentiate 911 funding from other public safety needs as much as possible. So yes, firefighters and police officers and EMS need radios, and yes, they need the software, and yes, they need this other stuff. But all of that for field responder funding needs to come from some other funding mechanism, not 911 specific funds. And finally, it's always a good idea to attend town halls with local legislators and political leaders. Again, the more they see your face as the local expert for 911, the more they're going to come and talk to you instead of reaching out to other sources that may not be as knowledgeable about your 911 center than you are. Would you add anything else?
No, but I do think that, you know, the only thing I'm gonna add is we will try to, as the committee, will be trying to get together some handouts for when you talk to your legislators, you'll have something to hand them, you know, like talking points, as Jim has pointed out, you know, to hand those, to leave them with something, so that, especially your contact, but also something that, oh my God, they've overwhelmed me with everything, but it's on my desk, and now something in the legislatives come up, and wait a minute, I have a folder on that. Because these legislators, they don't have to, you know, we know about 911. And what I've been amazed about is trying to get them to understand is they have 50,000 things that come across their desk that they have to get really knowledgeable about. And so having that folder in their office, you know, oh, this is where my 911 stuff is. And somebody's talking about 911, I'm going to pull it and look at it. And here's my contact. That's one of the things, you know, one of our goals, I guess, with this training for PSAP representatives.
I'll just add too about the budget shortfalls. So this year, I think everybody knows we had a roughly $1 billion budget shortfall. I've heard an estimate that next year it's going to be $700 million. So still very impactful. I have had some conversations internally within the state. I can't go into a lot of detail on them, but I've had some conversations that I think may reduce the likelihood of attempts to access 911 money for non-911 purposes, or make legislation introduced to do that less likely to move forward. But there's no guarantee of that, especially when there's that much financial pressure. So we're going to have to be on high alert. And it's not just the enterprise. If there are opportunities to use any kind of funds, even if it's local ETC funds, to cover that $700 million shortfall, there will be a temptation for the legislators to try to do that.
One thing that stood out to me was the $123 million, you know, statewide, and then also, you know, almost 3 million calls. I use ECATS in support of WESCO all the time for troubleshooting and technical things, but it's a really powerful tool and resource, I think, now that statewide, people are able to get your call volumes and your budget and maybe paint those broad strokes for the people who don't know the details and cost per call, you know, and that's just 911. That's not even counting all the auxiliary admin calls that actually make up probably the majority of a lot of call center calls. So painting those broad pictures, high graphs and visuals for people that aren't in these technical details like we are. A great way to complement your patient.
Very good point.
So the last slide is contact information, and it's just a reminder to provide your contact information to the legislators. The Colorado 911 program and the Resource Center are also good opportunities. And I see that Tina has her hand up.
She does, on purpose. Yeah, so talking about ECATS, the thought popped in my mind that a really good idea, because I don't know about you, but when I run the staffing forecast in the management tools in ECATS, I cringe a little every time. So I suspect that most would, right? So running that forecasting model to say, you know, to meet our metrics, this is what we need. And here's what we have. That could also paint a very compelling picture of the 911 doing more with less, which has sort of been a mantra for us for decades, right? But just another data point, and I encourage that to be a part of the snapshot.
All right, good point.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just add, thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate you going through this like that. And if you have any other thoughts and ideas, please let the legislative committee know. We do want to get this out as soon as possible because it is the time to start contacting your legislators. They're home. They're at their home base. So they're in your local area now. And now's a perfect time to reach out to them, invite them to your center, and start talking to them. And again, as I said at the beginning of my drive, thought that the legislative committee would love to hear from you if you've been able to contact a representative or a legislator. But we want to put this out. We can probably do it virtually, at Lunch and Learns, or however we want to get this out to all the 911 centers, so that we could get this information out. I've added a bunch of stuff that, we will take back to the legislative committee to get updated. And if you have any other thoughts, please, please don't be shy. Your voice needs to be heard. And the big point here is the legislators need to hear from us, because it's a new thing for them to hear from 911. I mean, over the last 5 years, they've heard from us quite a bit on various different things. But prior to that, they didn't hear from us very much. And so we need to change that dynamic in Colorado so that they do understand our jobs, what we're doing, our funding, et cetera. Thank you.
And I would just tag on to that and say, I think it's really important for them to understand that 911 does have a voice separate from field responder agencies. 911's challenges are unique and different than law enforcement, fire, EMS, emergency management, mental health, those 6 pillars. And they need attention. Or at the very least, they need to be understood.
You know, I might make one final observation. So, I think in a journey of a conversation like this, there's probably a couple of different outcomes you want. One is education on facts, so sharing information and hoping that the audience can remember some of the facts. But, you know, human brains can only absorb so much. But I think the other part is getting them to feel something, because they'll remember how they feel. They may not remember necessarily all the facts and need to have access to them. But like Jennifer's saying, if you personalize it to them, to the individuals in your center, to experiences that you have had, memorable calls, and help them feel that, then they'll remember it. And I think they'll remember it way, way into the future. So that's my observation.
Yeah, and then making it human, making that story, but then having the data to back it up. Because most of those legislators want the numbers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, great, thanks. Thanks, Jackie, for all the work that you do legislatively. Thank you, Jennifer, for putting that together. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Next that we have on the agenda is the standing reports. Just as a reminder, the written version of these reports can be found in the meeting materials folder. We don't go through every one of them, but we do go through each one and ask if there's an update that needs to be provided. So I'll go ahead and start with you, Jennifer.
Okay. The only couple things I want to highlight is we did file the Net 911 Act report for the 2024 reporting period with the FCC. And it is posted on the public reports page, so you guys can go and check that out. It's fascinating reading, I'm telling you. We also are continuing our GIS informational session with this afternoon. So thank you to Carl for hosting today's meeting and the GIS session. And thank you to Deb and Lauren from DataMark for being here for today's session. That will be in person and online this afternoon from 1 to 4. So I hope you'll join us. It will also be recorded and put onto the YouTube channel with the other 3 series that have been there so far. And if anybody has any question on anything, I'm happy to answer.
Sounds like you're good. Oh, Matt.
I did add an update to the original version of the GIS committee report. There's a couple of links in there for folks to provide public comment on NG911 GIS data model version 3 that is now out for public review. So it's in the very last stages, open for public comment for yourselves or your GIS experts.
I'll just add one thing to the PUC report in that, as in previous years, by the end of this month, we will be opening a proceeding to set all of the rates for next year. So the threshold for the local emergency telephone charge, the state 911 surcharge, which will this year include the 911 enterprise fee. So that'll be part of that discussion, the prepaid surcharge, et cetera. So be watching for that. And as always, the initial decision will include recommendations from staff as to what those things should be set to, but that is not the end of the conversation. It's just the beginning. So there will be a comment period, and then the commission will issue a final decision before the end of September.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. Next is the BESP report. Jeff, do you have anything to add or We're good.
Tressa.
Or Tressa, sorry.
So that's, press on.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
If I can take a minute.
Sure.
I had a conversation with Jennifer 2 weeks ago, I think.
At the conference?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the common things, and this ties in directly to DES, or indirectly, I should say, the non-emergency lines. That seems to be a challenge in a lot of communities, a lot of PSAPs. There are solutions and alternatives to be able to help with that. For those that have Lumina as their service provider, I know one of the frustrations is, who do you call to get repairs done? And a lot of times it goes to a business center. And my mindset has always been, since I've been involved with 911, if it's under the roof of a PSAP, it should be considered 911 service. So we have services available that do offer alternatives to that, other than just your regular POTS lines, your regular business lines coming in. Even the old PRI technology, those are things that industry-wide we're trying to transition away from. Some of the things that we have available, get those moved over to SIP service. They actually have wireless backup. So there are options out there that, as the BES provider, we should be able to help you with those. So if anybody has any questions on it or wants more information, let me know.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Tim, you have your hand raised online.
I wanted to just add one thing. I know we've been waiting for the rulemaking to conclude and get that order from the ALJ, but I think it's probably safe to begin moving forward with some tariff amendments. And so we would like to sit down with all of you, maybe in the next couple of weeks, to go through what we would like to put forward for approval. And so I wanted to see if that's a reasonable time frame to start engaging folks, or should we wait a little longer? And what would be the easiest way to pull a meeting together?
Well, I know it's summertime. I mean, we could always look at the next couple of weeks, but I think just knowing what everybody goes through at a center during summertime, just between, level of activity and busyness. And to pull, like I said, we could look at the next couple of weeks. And I think, are you talking about, Tim, everyone on this meeting? Because I think the easiest way to determine a date would be a doodle poll.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Ethernet users group?
Yeah. So that might be something that we can do. Jackie, go ahead.
I think it would be really important to pull that together, because there's a lot going on. And after my brain was blown up yesterday, well, it's yesterday, wasn't it? Anyway, hairpins and things.
Oh, yeah. They don't work for me.
At any rate, I do think it would be very important to pull together as many people as possible to really look at this tariff amendment to make sure we're addressing the things that need to be addressed.
Yep, I would agree. Tim, I'm more than happy to work with you on that. If you want to do that, if you want me to send out the poll, I'm happy to do that.
That'd be great. I will get with you offline.
Okay, sounds good. And was it Joe?
Joe had his hand up.
Joe, your hand was up before. I think he's just playing with us. No.
And I'll just add to that, Tim, when it comes to getting recommended decisions in a rulemaking, we're on the judge's schedule. But I would expect something very, very soon on that. And I can't go into detail, but I'll just say I don't think anybody's going to be shocked or surprised by the outcome.
That was our thought as well.
We should have some certainty in that area very soon.
Okay, anything else on any of that? Nope.
Joe says sooner the better due to deadlines for rate proceeding.
True. Yeah, so Tim, I'll reach out to you after I get back home today, and we'll try to get something worked out as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you, Kathy.
Absolutely. Next we have, BESP report, Entrado. Do we have anybody from Entrado?
I think so.
Okay. Any update from Entrado? Okay. Next is the bylaws, Kimberly.
No, nothing for the bylaws committee.
Thanks, Kimberly. Legislative committee, Jackie.
I guess I'm gonna dominate this meeting. As was mentioned earlier, the committee had a long conversation. DOR put out in a private letter, that their ruling on unlimited voice minutes are not subject to the prepaid wireless definition that says minutes decline. And so this letter came out, it was a private letter to one company. However, we know that that's gonna spread. We do collect, as I said earlier, 17 million a year with last year's collection of prepaid. And so the legislative committee will need a vote from the task force. We want to move forward with changing the definition in 2911-103. I'm looking at Darrell.
Sorry, what was that?
2911-103?
For prepaid?
Yes.
2911-102.5.
102.5. The legislative committee wants to put close.
We're close. Very close.
Wants to put together draft legislation to change the definition of prepaid so that we capture all of prepaid, because as things evolve, prepaid companies have evolved since that prepaid definition was written. Last year in legislation, Senate Bill 31 did change some of the language, but it doesn't quite capture what we needed to capture. And so we would like a vote from the task force if they would like the legislative committee to move forward with this legislation. In addition, we would bring in any lobbyists available to us, including CCOA, if they want to join us. I sent Kimberly an email. Sorry, this morning, Kimberly. Anyway, so I need a vote from the task force as a whole to move forward.
And Kimberly has her hand up right now.
Kimberly, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had a question because I'm not sure how this works with DOR for a letter to come out. And I know some language was used in the email about a ruling and have a private ruling. So did this go to their executive director and was reviewed by their executive director or the AG's office, or how did an opinion get formed and then a private letter ruling get issued? And I know you guys met on Monday and I had a conflict, so I apologize, but can this group get maybe a little bit more context?
Yeah, Kimberly, so I'm working on trying to get more information about how the process works, because until this happened, I didn't even know that such a thing as a private letter from DOR existed. But my understanding so far of how it works is that a single company can reach out to DOR and say, hey, we're confused about this statute and how it applies to us. Can you tell us your opinion? I don't know what the process is behind that. I have made an assumption that I think is probably accurate, but I've asked them for clarification on this, that the AG's office is involved, because I can't imagine DOR issuing a legal opinion without talking to the AG's office. I've also asked them if there is a process for appealing the decision or contesting the decision. And so far I've not received a response back, but I'm going to continue pushing them on that. It was done without any consultation to the PUC at all, and obviously without any consultation to the local agencies that rely on this funding. So it seems like it was done in kind of a black box of just looking at the actual definition in the statute and making a legal opinion based on that. And technically the private letter on their website, it says that the private letters only apply to the company that asked for it. But I also know that the letter has been picked up by several tax journals already. So I know other companies are looking at this and saying, well, if it doesn't apply to them, then it doesn't apply to us either. And The real concern I have is that the majority of prepaid business plans now, prepaid plans, are using unlimited time or unlimited minutes, and you buy a month at a time. I have said, Kathy and I were just talking about this yesterday, that my argument would be that a month of unlimited time is a unit of purchase that declines with use. But
It's not that different from a normal cell phone.
Exactly.
Not a contract.
Now, one mitigating factor, this only affects 911. So let me go back. The decision that they made doesn't just affect 911, because the same definition is referenced in the 988 statute, and it is now referenced in the TRS statute, or they've changed the name of TRS now to the Telephone Disability Access Surcharge. So it affects all three of those surcharges. Some language that did get put in through Senate Bill 31 last year may help just with 911, where in the prepaid section of 911, it now says that this section applies to prepaid wireless telecommunications services. All other telecommunications services are subject to sections 102, which is the emergency telephone charge, and sections 102.3, which is the state 911 surcharge. So if we can get a list from DOR, and they have told me that they will provide that to me, of the companies that were paying prepaid before and have stopped, we can approach those companies and say, well, you're not paying the prepaid anymore. Now you have to pay the local surcharge and the state surcharge. However, I think that's going to be difficult to do when you're talking about retailers like Walmart and Best Buy, who sell prepaid minutes in their stores and are not telecom providers, because all the ETC and the state surcharge are really geared towards providers, not retailers. I'm sorry, Kimberly, go ahead.
No, I guess, Darrell, what I was thinking, and again, this isn't my wheelhouse of DOR and understanding how this came about, but it feels like maybe our first approach, instead of just jumping in with a motion for running legislation, would be, it feels like this letter came out of nowhere and it wasn't a proper ruling, and there was no consultation out of your group and your executive director. So I almost wonder if Director Salazar needs to talk to Director Humphreys, and then the AG's office needs to get involved before we start talking about legislation, so we can almost level set this, and a corrective letter could be issued if needed, versus opening up legislation, running language on legislation. I'm not saying it may not be needed to bring legislation current for prepaid. That may still be needed, but we got to deal with this issue almost immediately, and level setting, correcting, getting the executive directors to communicate, maybe understanding where this private ruling that really came out of nowhere without DOR consulting with, your office. I just feel like that probably needs to happen, or anyone, right? And so that's where I was just thinking, perhaps Director Salazar could talk to Director Humphreys, get the AG's office involved. I feel like Director Humphreys needs to unravel this mess and maybe do a corrective letter, or get the AG's office involved as an immediate action. It allows us time to really regroup if needed on legislation. And I just don't know if it's needed, just because DOR issued this quote unquote private ruling that just doesn't seem to align with what I read on the legislation. That's just my thoughts on this.
Yep, I don't disagree with you, Kimberly, which is why I've started by reaching out to DOR to see if there is already a process in place for contesting or requesting a extra review of a letter after it's been published. If there isn't one, then I am certainly happy to take that up the chain through DOR and see if we can get, not DOR, but DORA, to get DORA to talk to DOR to see if there's some way that they can issue a revised opinion. Whether the task force wants to work on legislation in parallel, just in case those efforts don't work, I think is a decision for the task force. But if the task force wanted to wait to see if those efforts bear fruit, then that's fine too.
And this is Jackie, and so we have this meeting in September, when we'll need a vote of the task force to
Right,
move forward.
I think that's the only consideration. If it does have to go to legislation, there's a limited amount of time to make those decisions.
Correct. And so, yes, it is up to the task force to decide if they want to wait and see what happens between DOR and DORA, or if we want to vote today, or we want to move it to September. Totally up to the task force. We could certainly do that.
Is September enough time to see if Kimberly's suggestion is a viable option?
I think if we don't have a decision by September, then you're probably going to want to go with legislation.
Nope. Yeah,
Joe?
sorry, Joe's got his hand up.
Can you hear me
Joe?
now?
Yes.
Yes, oh, hey.
Okay. When we went through the numbers of how much the costs are that the authorities will be losing in distributions if we're not getting the prepaid surcharge, I think we need to look at all options and do more than one thing at once.
Yeah. We got a thumbs up from Matt on that. My thought is,
This goes to what I was gonna say
okay,
when I was raising my hand earlier. The task force could pass a motion, which is coming through well enough. I can be really loud if I need to. The task force could pass a motion approving this contingent
Right.
on the outcome of efforts with DOR. That way, we don't have to wait till September.
yeah,
Kind of what Tina said too. in the
Yes.
chat.
GMTA, DMTA? Demented minds think alike?
Yeah, there you go.
I was like,
Yeah, what acronym was that, Matt? Throw another one at us. So, what would you like, Jackie? Would you like us to?
I would like the task force to make a decision on either voting today or voting September, and if they vote today,
Contingent.
contingent upon
Yep.
what's found out.
if it turns out not to be necessary, then,
And we don't
you've
have
done
to
some
do it.
prep work for nothing. But the good news is, we already have language, because I tried to get language into Senate Bill 31 to fix it, and it got taken out due to concerns from the wireless companies, but we also know what their concern was, so we can adjust it to maybe avoid that same impasse.
Right, and I think as future comes on, we may need the legislative change anyway.
Right.
I mean, but, yeah, I do think we can, the task force can either decide this month contingent on the outcome of the letter, or wait till September. Either is fine.
As Michael, this has been a conversation piece for some time now. My question would be, what would be a contingency? It sounds like it's something that is needed regardless, to update the language and make sure we're covering for these types of new ways of prepaid, so to speak. What would a contingency be
Well,
versus just going and at least those two paths?
so here are the two ways this could go. We could get DOR to change their interpretation to match our interpretation, which is, and let me pull up the actual language. That might be helpful to people. Because right now, the definition of prepaid wireless telecommunications service says that, it's going to take me a minute to pull up the exact language, but it says that it is a service that you purchase in advance and declines with use, either in terms of minutes or dollars. But it doesn't say minutes, it says unit of time. Let me,
Less minutes
They use it
available.
up. So if you bought 60 minutes and you're down to 1, you're done.
let me pull up, I'm almost there to the exact definition. 2911, 101, definition, I think it's paragraph 22. Let's see if I get that right.
So Tina, yes, a month is a unit of time, but
No.
DOR didn't see it that way.
Paragraph 21. So what it says right now, prepaid wireless telecommunications service means wireless telecommunications access that allows the user to make 911 calls is paid for in advance and is sold in predetermined units or dollars, of which the number of units or dollars available to the caller declines with use in a known amount. Units used to be minutes, because that's how prepaid was sold. And as you used the minutes, the number of minutes went down. You ran out of minutes. You had to go buy more prepaid. Now how it usually works is you buy a month of unlimited service at a time, and every month you have to renew that. My argument would be that units could mean months just as easily as it can mean minutes. So if we can get DOR to reinterpret that to mean minutes, or either minutes or months, then I think we're done, at least for now, until somebody comes up with some new business model for how prepaid works. If we can't get DOR to do that, then we need to change the definition so that it's clear that buying an unlimited use for a month at a time is still prepaid.
And just, I mean, I think it'd be good to have something to go now.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is we are sales tax supported, and several years ago, we kind of got in a situation like this. So basically, DOR told the company they had to pay, for fracking sand, that it was taxable. They took, the company took DOR to court and basically won it, and I believe in appeals. The state didn't take it all the way to the Supreme Court, but saying that they didn't have to pay, sales tax on fracking sand. And we had to pay over, 1.5, well over 1.5 million back to them. So even if DOR reinterprets this, we still need to be ready to go, because for 17 million on the line, depending on who the customer or the person is, it could take this well worth it to take work for them.
You're correct. Although it would be nice that we would have on record which company it is that publicly wants to say that we don't think we should pay 911 surcharges.
But, I mean, my experience with DOR is they basically took this all the way to the appeals court, and after the appeals court shot it down.
They chose not to.
And then when we had to pay, that's when we learned that this is going. So they're not real transparent.
So
Right.
a letter reversal is a delaying action,
Yeah.
really.
It could be. I mean, depending on if it's a small company, they may say it's not worth the attorney fees. Another company could say it's worth it.
Or the hit to their public image.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Daryl. Being so quick and knowing those numbers right off the top of your head.
So do we have consensus on,
That's what, yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna move forward with that. So,
Do you want a motion?
yes.
Call for a motion, yeah.
Yeah. I need to call for a motion, from the task force, for the legislative committee to move forward with working on the language. I don't know the number of what we're changing, I'm sorry. Working on that language to update the definition of prepaid wireless. It probably needs to be done, but do we still want it contingent? Or are we, okay, so contingent
That's up to you,
on,
Neil.
okay. Contingent on, work that, is going to take place between, the PUC and the DOR. So, a motion for that.
I'll move that the legislative task force work on legislation in case for prepaid.
I'll second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds, that's fine.
Who is that on the phone for minutes? Is that Tina?
Tina?
Okay. Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Thank you. Any opposed, same sign?
I see a hand up. I don't-
Okay.
That was a yes vote.
Oh, okay.
Color.
Okay. All right, the, motion passes, so we will move forward that way. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you all.
And I will keep the task force up to date. I won't wait till the next meeting to give an update on this, obviously. I'll keep the task force and the legislative committee up to date on our efforts to do this through the executive branch.
Thank you.
All right. Jackie, anything else?
No, we did the presentation.
There we go. Okay, next is, do we have Nate on? Is Nate?
I didn't see him, but
Okay.
he might have joined later.
Okay.
Norman is also on for
Okay.
988.
Norman.
So 988 report, any update for that?
Yeah, this is Norman Kittishire with the BHA. Nate unfortunately is not able to make it this week. He's been out due to personal matters. Um, However, I just wanted to again reiterate what Jennifer had mentioned earlier in her presentation, which was great. Thank you, Jen, for that. Colorado currently has 84 PSAPs, but we currently only have 12 of them that are actively partnered with Colorado 988 Contact Center, Solari. These 12 PSAPs are transferring mental health related crisis calls to 988. Again, the big goal here is to grow these partnerships so that more PSAPs can use 988 as a resource, especially for calls that really need someone with mental health training to help de-escalate whatever crisis that individual may be in. That way we take some of that burden off of 911 and make sure that people in mental health or substance use crisis get connected to the appropriate level of care. Of those 12 PSAPs, those 12 PSAPs are Adams County, Aurora, Crowley, Inglewood, Jeffcom, Rock County, Thornton, Federal Heights, Denver, Broomfield, and Arapahoe County. And recently, Colorado Springs Police Department. And we've definitely made significant strides with Colorado Springs. One example of that is as of June 16, Colorado Springs signed an MOU with Solari. It's Colorado's first MOU with our contact center. And since then, they've transferred roughly 71 mental health related calls within the last month. That's actually double the rate of call transfers we've seen from any other PSAP so far. So we definitely want to increase 988 usage as a support for 911. We're still in close contact with Colorado Springs to smooth out any issues with the process. One thing we've noticed is a trend in imminent risk calls being transferred to 988, which again wouldn't be the appropriate level of intervention. So we'll be working with Nate Clay, Sarah Franz, and Dave Hum, as well as Solari, to coordinate a training that clearly outlines situations of when it would be appropriate to send calls to 988, and just making sure that everyone's on the same page. If I know that Nate will be making his way around to the different PSAPs individually to present 988 and the benefits of that. However, if anyone on this call is interested in partnering with 988 to get a backline established with our contact center so that you guys may send some of those mental health related calls to 988, we're happy to prioritize that. And I'll be sharing my Nate's contact as well as myself in the chat so that you guys can reach out to us if you'd like.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thanks, Norman. And if I could just let you know that I've held 2 regional meetings in the last month, one in Canyon City and one in Rocky Ford. And I have been talking with those PSAPs about the benefits of partnering with 988, even if they don't necessarily want to transfer calls directly to 988, having that relationship with Solari and that direct number so that 988 can transfer directly to them should they need assistance. And that information was well received, and people were asking for more information, so I did direct them to Nate. So I think we're, through those regional meetings, we're starting to build some knowledge and awareness as well.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. And maybe later down the line, as soon as Nate, gets his feet wet with this position, we'd hope to have him join you in some of those regional meetings.
Yep, he's welcome anytime. And I think Connie Johnson has her hand up.
Okay. Connie?
Yes, my question's for Norman. Do you know if Nate's going to be available? We had an introduction meeting scheduled for tomorrow with Aaron Kreitz and Abigail.
Yes, I believe he comes back. He's coming back to Colorado tonight. So I will shoot him a message just to remind him about that meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Connie.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thanks, Norman.
Thanks, Jen.
Next is the Equal Access Committee, and that's Holly.
Had to drop off.
She had to drop off.
She said that her report is already in the standing report document.
Okay. Outage Committee is, Tina's not part of
So, unfortunately, Tina has had to step away from a lot of the statewide responsibilities that she had due to a change in her workload. And so she has stepped down as, chair of the outage committee as well. So we're gonna address that vacancy later in new business, but Daryl, I'm sure, can provide updates on the outages that you're investigating.
Yes, we still have two, let me pull it up here. We still have two open outage investigations, not outage, PSAP service disruption investigations using the new definitions. However, we did have, as a lot of you are aware, we had a very wide impact earlier this week that we will be opening up a PSAP service disruption investigation on, having multiple PSAPs involved as an automatic trigger for an investigation. And then I think, Jennifer, you told me there was another one either later that day or the next day in Baca and Prowers County?
Possibly. I'm unclear as to whether it was a local disruption or a 911 disruption. So
Okay,
I'm
well,
waiting to hear back from the PSAP.
if we determine that it was likely or possibly a PSAP service disruption, we may open an investigation on that as well. But the two that we still have active are one for Rangeley PD and Chaffee County, and we have a joint PSAP service disruption meeting of the outage committee next week to discuss both of those.
Okay. Thanks, Daryl.
Do you think the task force needs to rename the outage committee?
It is totally up to the task force what they call it, but the rules now call them PSAP service disruptions.
Okay. I guess it'll stay outage for right now.
I don't see any for the
Okay.
outage, for the task force to change the name of the committee, because the outage committee can actually talk about other types of outages that are not PSAP service disruptions. So I think it makes sense for it to have a broader name.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Next, prepaid and collections. Jackie, any update?
Oh, did you mean to skip broadband? Sorry.
Broadband,
What?
broadband, Kristen Perry.
Oh, sorry, I was on the agenda. My mistake.
Oh, I'll deconflict that.
Okay. Broadband, Kristen Perry. Or alternate.
Anybody from the Colorado Broadband office on?
Okay,
Guess not.
all right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Jackie?
I just wanted to point out that if you have any topics, let me know. We have not met, but we determined with this prepaid letter, we determined that there were enough people on the legislative committee that really makes up the prepaid and collections committee as well. So we figured we would just handle it in the legislative committee unless there's something somebody would like to bring up right now to the prepaid and collections. We don't have anything scheduled or anything on the agenda.
I'll just add one thing, and that's, as people probably remember, the proceeding that sets the state 911 surcharge and the prepaid surcharge also includes the percentages that will be used next year by DOR for distribution of the prepaid, however much that ends up being because of this private letter. They'll be watching for that, but we've done the initial calculations and the percentages are very close to what they are this year, so don't expect a big change. And as a reminder, those percentages are based on wireless call volumes of all of the PSAPs kind of bundled up at the authority level.
And you're still using the Intrado Insight.
We are, because not everybody's on ECATS yet.
Is there a way for UC to audit prepaid? Because I know they can for the regular ones.
We are not able to audit prepaid because DOR collects it and they are fully responsible for it. In fact, in the past, DOR has refused to even give us a list of who's paying prepaid because they consider that confidential taxpayer information. So I was happy that they at least told us that they would let us know if people were paying it before and stopped because of this private ruling.
Okay, any other questions? EZNet Users Group, is Steve on?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Good morning, everybody. A quick update on the EZNet user group. The group has approved the strategic plan by way of vote. Big thank you to the group that put this together over the last year. It was a huge lift, and the plan has been approved. Second update is the EUG has scheduled we had a special meeting with the intent of CenturyLink and Entrado presenting the roadmap on how they're going to meet the expectations of the FCC's 911 report and order as it relates to BESP services and the EZNet. Unfortunately, the content of the presentation didn't meet the expectations from the group. So we had a couple meetings afterwards to reset those expectations, and a new meeting date for that special meeting is set for August 11th, where they will present to the EUG. And lastly, we've had some conversation about a discrepancy on project management fees charged by CenturyLink. And so we've asked for some more information so we can have further discussion on which projects are being charged project management fees and which ones are not. That's my end of my report. Any questions?
And I'll just point out that project management charges is also under new business today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Daryl.
Andrew?
When will that recording be up on YouTube?
For the user group?
Yeah.
It should be by the end of the week. Yeah. Hopefully later today. But if it's no longer me. It's one more layer.
Gotcha.
So, and she's very responsive. So I'm sure if I remind her for this meeting and then yesterday's meeting, it'll be up by no later than tomorrow.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
GIS. Yeah.
Covered.
All good? Okay.
Thank you.
Jeannie, are you still on the PSCS report?
Yes,
Any
we
update?
are not at this time. We are meeting later today at 1 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good. Next is Amanda, with the SWIC update. Anything to add?
I can't tell either.
Okay,
I don't hear her though.
all right,
I don't see her.
okay, she's not on. Next. Oh, okay.
Fire.
Are you scrolling?
Yeah, right here.
Oh,
Division of Fire Prevention.
oh, division, there we go, sorry. Connie, you're next. Division of Fire Prevention and Control report. Any updates?
No, I have no update other than if anybody's curious on a personal level, they might want to look at that map on the Wildfire Resiliency Code Board. It's kind of interesting, and I'm sure that some other people that take care of your insurance needs are going to be looking at that map.
Connie, can you send out the link for that?
I certainly can.
That would be great, thank you. And you're up again, Colorado 911 Resource Center update.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add, okay.
This is Daryl. I'll just add that the GIS project that the Resource Center received funding for through the CPAP fund distribution, the RFP for that has gone out. We're doing it through OIT, so my big thanks to the Office of Information Technology for offering to serve as the purchasing agent for this. So that RFP is out for proposals right now.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Do we have Karen or Sam on?
I don't know.
Have anybody from Rapid SOS on? Okay. How about CJ? CJ Bales on?
CJ is out.
He's out, okay.
On vacation.
Oh, okay.
But he did provide this update, and if you are a PSAP leader and you did not get the draft minimum training standard, please check your email or let one of us know, myself or CJ or Zach, and we will get it to you because we are soliciting feedback on that. They are looking at holding an in-person training class last quarter of this year, and we're looking for volunteers for instructors as well. The next meeting is August 12th.
And just to clarify for people who haven't been following that, that is a voluntary minimum training standard.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Voluntary minimum.
Don't want to give anyone a heart attack.
No. All right, thanks, Jennifer.
Sure.
Next, Kimberly, CCOA update.
Yeah. So for the CCOA, we are working on comments for the FCC proposed rulemaking on next generation 911 reliability. So we're working on drafting those, and we will be prepared to send our PUC staff some comments for the annual report that they will be working on. We also have a lobbyist. So as the legislative committee and the task force just voted, so if there's legislation for that prepaid wireless, the CCOA members will be discussing that in July. So I'll take that to them, Jackie, per our email back and forth. And just for
Thank you.
everybody, yeah, you bet. Our membership is $175 per SIP session. So, and that's annually, not per month. So if you're interested in joining the CCOA, we have 26 members as part of the Colorado Council of Authorities. So if you're interested and you are a 911 authority, you are welcome to join us. We would love to have you. So just reach out to me if you're interested.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Next, Michael, 911 Services Enterprise.
I would say the only thing additional from me would be a thank you to Jackie, the legislative committee, the task force as a whole, for keeping on top of things that may or may not have impact our ability to set a budget and fees. Thank you for all of your guys' attention to that.
Absolutely. We have to guard those funds like a dog with their food bowl, I'm telling you.
For the bone.
Yep. Okay, what do we got next? Do we want to take a break? Anybody need a break? Anybody need a break?
It's been going a while.
Yeah, why don't we take like 10 minutes? And we'll start back up at noon.
For those on the phone, we're going to go ahead and mute this, but we will start back up again at noon.
I like to go for it. Yeah, it could be minutes, months, or years.
All right, everybody, it's noon.
I see, yep.
They're more than that. Jacqueline, Marie Louise.
Yes, sir.
Wow, he's like,
He did it. I am.
That got your attention.
No kidding, yeah. She middle named you.
He did.
That'll get you every
Got
time.
me all my names.
Yep. All right, everybody, welcome back. It's noon. We're gonna move forward. And I think, our next category is old business. And we have the issue with CenturyLink customer service, and we do have Jim Carlson here. So I'm gonna open it up to you first.
Yeah, so
Have things.
if you don't mind, I'm gonna stand. Just because I want to make sure everybody can hear me. As I mentioned when we began, my role is specifically focused on public safety. And so I have direct responsibility for the sales team, so that includes Jeff and other individuals, but I work with the rest of the Lumen organization who has a stake in making sure that our public safety customers are taken care of. So Kevin, who works in our engineering team, Sharon, who many of you know, who works in our customer experience team, are individuals who I work with on a regular basis. And so it's a team with a lot of individuals with specific responsibilities. And, you know, the way the sausage making works at Lumen is these organizations work together to accomplish tasks. They share information, they hand off tasks, and it's just the way the company operates. And so when Andrew and I had a conversation a bit ago about me coming by and sitting down and having a chat with him about some specific concerns he had, his reflection was, well, why don't you come to this setting here so you can have a broader conversation on whatever it is we need to talk about? And I said, fantastic. I think that's wonderful. You know, just so you understand my very genuine context here. So today is my anniversary. My wife and I have been married 43 years, which is a testament to her patience and my willingness to learn. And I mean that very genuinely. But what I've observed over 43 years is it works if there's a commitment to the relationship and if you communicate. And sometimes expectations aren't met, sometimes breakdowns happen, but, you know, you're either there or you're not. And I've been blessed for 43 years and 2 kids and 8 grandkids to, you know, have somebody who's willing to be in that relationship. And it really is my model for my professional life. I make no claims that myself or my team are perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And so we're always on a hunt to make things better. And sometimes I know you all might see that, and other times it doesn't feel like anything's changed. Because I've had more than one conversation with folks like you all across the country, not just here in Colorado, where folks are worn out dealing with women. You know, they're frustrated, trust has been broken, and, you know, there's a long conversation that can be had around the whys of that. But really, at the end of the day, the whys are just the background information. What really matters is the experience itself, and so that's why I'm here. I'm going to make sure my contact information is available to everybody. I'm always interested in having one-on-one or group conversations to understand how things are going. While Jeff's in a journey to be involved with public safety professionals in 3 states, you know, my area of responsibility is across the whole country. And so I don't get the opportunity to always sit in meetings like this, which is why I was so excited to come out. You know, it's a chance for me to, honestly, it's a chance for me to get plugged into things that I should already be plugged into. But I'm not going to say I understand everything that's going on and where the breakdowns are. That's why I'm here. So I will take all questions, and we can, if we can't answer a particular question like in the moment, because I'm not gonna pretend to be able to answer everything, we have people who can. And my commitment to you all is a long-term commitment, meaning I'm not just here because I've never been to Rifle before, and it's a really cool drive to get here. And it really is. Beautiful part of God's country. I really am serious about a long-term journey to fix things that are causing causing ongoing frustration. So that's why I'm here. So I'll stop talking. That's my intro. Not that it matters. I've been a part of the various permutations of this company called Lumen since 1987. So left college as a computer programmer. Did it for 5 years and said I cannot do that for the rest of my life. And so at the time I worked for a company called Sprint that became Embark, that became CenturyLink, that bought US West, and on and on and on and on. And we're Lumen now. So I have been around for a while. I've seen my company do wonderfully tremendous things, and I've seen areas where we can grow and improve, and we have to get better. So kind of seen all the ranges of it. So I'll stop talking and let any topic that anybody might want to have, let's talk about it. And then I'm going to let Mr. Winkleman take notes. So
I'll start. This is Kathy. So last year, just so that you get the timeline, last year from about June 13th to July 3rd, my agencies and the authority, which is 5 law enforcement, 1 fire agency, went through an audio issue on all incoming 911 calls. The audio was so poor and so bad that they were hanging up and calling the people back, because calling them back, the outbound audio was great.
Okay.
I immediately was in touch with Andrew, and I know Jeff was in on it. Andrew Freebert was fantastic working. I talked to him more in those 18 days than I've probably talked to him since.
Right.
But it took a very long time. It took 18 days to figure it out, and finally by July 3rd, I said, you have got to get this figured out and get it fixed. Tomorrow is July 4th.
Right.
The busiest day.
Right.
Okay, so that was last year. So this year, June 20th, I'm sitting, well, actually, it was June 19th it started. We had the same audio issue start again.
Right.
June 20th, I'm leaving for Neenah. I've already, Andrew and Tracy Dillow are both off on PTO, which I understand, everybody gets their time off. I'm talking with Jeff. We're trying to get this resolved. The frustration that I heard from even the Lumen side back then was, why is the NOC closing my tickets? It's, and I don't understand it. I don't know how your guys, the NOC works.
Right.
But I don't understand it. It's like it goes for a certain amount of time, and they just, this is the perception.
Right.
They appear to think that it's resolved,
Right.
and they're like, okay, close it. Well, it's not resolved. It's still going on.
Right.
And as it turns out, it was the same problem. It was a bad T1 or T3 or something like that. So I guess my question is, if you know that that's old technology and you've got it throughout the state, what are you doing to correct that so that we don't have to go through this to get it fixed?
Right. So first, I'm sorry for the situation. I apologize. So let me ask you a couple of questions. So, and I'll get to your question, but I want to fill in a couple of blanks. So the experience you had last year, the 18-day experience in getting a resolution, when you got to resolution, did that resolution stick for a year? So it looked like it had been resolved at that time, or was it an ongoing problem after that?
It stuck for a year. We thought, I think 5 days into it last year, they thought they had it fixed.
Okay.
And then we went for 12 hours, and then boom, it started all over again. And so immediately, I was back on the phone with Andrew. So they thought it was fixed started again. They finally got it fixed on July 3rd.
Okay,
And so then again this year. But we didn't have it in between
right,
then, but it's just kind of funny to me, the timing is the same.
right, that is odd.
It's in June, you know, and so, it's just frustrating to know that the equipment that's out there, it's obsolete.
Right,
And so what is CenturyLink doing to update and fix that? We shouldn't be fixing things because these problems are happening. I
right,
mean, that's just, for me and the authority, I try to look ahead and say, when do we need to update this? Because we
Right.
don't want to have this problem.
right. So, there is, and this is broader to Lumen, not just to 911. There is a concerted effort to go through the network and take older services, older copper-based services, PDM, time division multiplexing services off those services because, one, they're getting really expensive as end-of-life equipment, various reasons, and they're not as reliable as newer technology. So there is a company-wide effort to do that. I don't know, Jeff, like, how do we think more specifically about those migrations in public safety here in Colorado? Are those, situational, or is there a way of looking across services that are in place and identifying areas where we need to target some migrations quicker?
Ironically, to give you a little more background, ironically enough, was had an issue that affected that federal traffic. And usually that was almost to the traffic again. I already took a look to find out if that facility is part of the mile.
Right.
But we can check with probably Mark and whoever's involved with that.
Right.
How that's addressed. It is.
Right.
And I guess my other question to add on to that is, why did that only affect the agencies in the Arapahoe County 911 Authority? Nobody else had this issue, last year or this year.
Right.
So why is it specific to our 6 agencies?
Yeah, and I can't answer that.
Not that I wish it on anybody else. Please don't hear it that way.
Kathy,
don't take it personally.
Kathy, it's not, so I have something to add when you're done.
Okay.
So, with a network architecture, this is kind of a common theme. With a network architecture that at the very edge, like where you are, is very specific to services coming to your locations. As things come together in the network, then a lot of locations end up coming together on common facilities. And so depending on how, if you think of it like a pyramid, depending on how high up the difficulty is in the network, it affects an increasing number of endpoints. So it could be most likely that in your situation that you're describing, the problem that we had sounds like with an optical carrier, it happened in a spot that only affected a certain set of endpoints. But if it had happened in a different spot, it could have affected a different set or more. I don't understand kind of why the problem that could have, and I don't know if Jeff, do you have any background, an issue that happened a year ago could repeat itself. I don't know if it's the same issue or a different issue. I don't know the answer to that question, but
I can tell you it was the same problem
yeah, voice
on our
audio,
end of it.
the
Yeah,
audio
it was
problem.
terrible audio.
Yeah.
Terrible.
So let me ask you a question about that. So, there are times when something goes wrong in the network, or even with a piece of CPE or an application in a center. There are times when something goes wrong, and there's an amount of investigation that has to happen to figure out what it is, in particular with a network outage, because, you could see the evidence of an outage pretty clearly, but then this is what happens, just so you all have a inside ballgame kind of view. When something goes wrong in the network, a team is assembled to figure out first where it happened. And it's not, sometimes it's like, it could be centered based on where we get alarming information. But sometimes there's a bit of a hunt that has to go on to figure out exactly where the outage problem is and then respond to that. So 18 days to me seems like a long time, but if it's in the network and that's where the problem was, maybe they were testing things, and I don't know, I wasn't a part of that exercise, but did you feel like during that 18-day period were you getting the proper amount of attention on this? Because sometimes it can take longer than we want to solve a problem, but if the eyeballs are on it, then they're working hard to get it done. But if they get distracted on the other things and then they come back to it, then I guess that could take longer. Do you feel like that was being responsive there?
Well, yeah, Andrew was very responsive.
Okay.
He was great to work with.
You
And,
did.
yeah, and obviously understood the frustration,
Oh, yeah.
and this is affecting 6
Yeah.
steps, you know? So, yes, I do feel like, you know, that was the good part of it. Andrew was very good to work with.
Right.
But then when you hear that it's old equipment that, you know, or an old line or whatever it is, and that's what we heard, is like a T1 or a T3 line or something like that, that needed to be replaced, some cabling, that raises concerns not just for my 6 agencies,
Right.
but statewide, because when's it gonna happen to these folks? Because it will. I mean, clearly, they only last, you know, so long.
Right.
So that's my bigger concern, is that anybody in the state, if this issue is happening or is that's the way these central offices are set up,
Right.
that's the bigger concern.
So do we know the root cause of that outage that we're talking about? You mentioned it was with an optical carrier. Was it a card? Was it? I'll have to go back. Okay, because I don't know the answer.
With some sort of cable, I can
But-
tell you that, 'cause
Yeah, so, you know, so your concerns are absolutely fair. And, you know, there's, and it doesn't, this isn't even a Lumen thing, this isn't anybody who provides network services thing. So whether it's AT&T or Verizon or Lumen, whoever it is. The whole network infrastructure, all the parts of it, you know, you put them together, and if you design it well, it should run at a high performance level, but then things happen. So sometimes it's an environmental thing, sometimes it's a piece of fiber gets cut, sometimes it's a card that fails, things happen. And so there is a internal mechanism within Lumen just generally to look at all the parts of the network and be aware of when pieces of the network need to be replaced, because every piece of hardware that's in our network has a life to it, and at some point it has to be replaced. So there is that ongoing effort. You know, there are efforts, as you know, we're in the middle now of upgrading like inter-office facilities and adding more fiber, fortifying routes, you know, building in more diversity that bring more resiliency into the network. And that's a part of the kind of the ongoing journey of being a network provider. But I think, you know, I think it can be a useful conversation to specific centers. If you all want to sit down and say, well, let's look at my situation, my connectivity, let's make sure, you know, I'm comfortable with how things are laid out and the services that are being delivered across those facilities. We can do that, and you know, Kevin is an expert at doing things like that with other folks who can and be a part of it, and we can check and make sure if there's nothing that needs to be changed. So, you know, I guess maybe the more specific answer to your question is there is an ongoing effort to make sure the network is always current, but you know, it could. That doesn't mean that there won't be an event that happens, because events do happen.
Sure.
So I kind of an incomplete answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing I do want to address is you made a comment that I'm sensitive to, and that is a perception that the Network Operations Center would close a ticket before the work is done. And that's a comment that I'll take back to Drew Groff, who runs our Network Operations Center. I want to know, I'm intrigued by the comment because I want to understand what their what their metrics are in terms of what success looks like. And if it's speed to close a ticket, then that may cause some problems.
I can tell you that's probably a frustration for many of us
Right.
on this call,
Okay.
and Matt had some of that. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yep. And Tina, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. So I've been listening to that because I have a couple of things to add to this, and the timing is pretty impeccable. That Kathy, thank you for discussing this, because I'm in the midst of this now, which is in the city of Aurora, we're experiencing a similar phenomenon, although it's not garbled audio. It's that 11 minutes into a call, the audio stops. We've ruled out our network. We've ruled out our Viper system. It's happening at random connections, at random consoles, always 11 minutes in. And we've been doing this since last month. And so our people have gotten really good about logging it and reporting it, but we still don't have resolution. And the problem is I don't know how long this really went on before we figured out the 11-minute, right? Because our call takers were presuming that they lost connection or the caller hung up, and we would redial them. But when we started to investigate it, particularly as people started to realize the 11-minute mark, we found through looking at the system that the caller was still on the line when we disconnected and then called back. They were not disconnecting, they were still there, but there was no audio. So that's problematic. And if it's something similar happening in Arapahoe, then, I guess my question to that, and I guess before I ask for the answer to that, I just want to add one more thing, is in reference to the knock, we did have a situation, it's been about 6 or 7 months ago, where we had essentially an auto dialer kind of launching a denial of service attack by redialing over and over again into our center. And my IT professional was met with the same thing, that we reported it and we asked for that. We confirmed it was a non-human caller and we asked for it to be blocked. And several hours later, it was still happening. And when we called, the person was like, yeah, we just haven't gotten to it yet. And in my mind, that lack of urgency is befuddling, because it's not just an inconvenience to us. We feel strongly about it because it's potentially life and death that is happening over that technology. And so we are very protective of it. But what I guess my question is, what, perhaps a reassessment of what is being done to monitor in real time, simply to confirm health, to confirm that it's operating correctly and optimally. Like, it seems to me like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if this is happening to us, it's happening to Arapahoe. Who else in the region is experiencing something similar?
Right. I'll maybe let Kevin answer it a little more specifically. I mean, we have within the network architecture monitoring systems that check the performance of the network and check uptime, and so those elements are within the network. Specific to in a center and things like what a dispatcher is experiencing, like voice quality and things like that. Kevin, I don't know, or Jeff, if there's any mechanisms that we have to check in on that?
So we have sophisticated testing for the egress. So once it goes into the next-gen network, we have a lot of testing, but this is before that. So this is through the legacy ILEC, I presume. And that's what you're kind of describing as an OC3. So it's probably not in the parts of the network that are heavily monitored for 911, is my guess. But we need to find out where it's happening to know exactly where to fix it. Is it cell phone too? Is it everything, landline, cell phone?
Or,
I guess on Tina right now.
okay.
I don't have all the data, but my understanding is we were able to rule out that it's carrier specific, and so it's, right, like it's origin agnostic. We were able to rule out that it's not like a cell tower being involved.
Right.
And that's what I know, right? Like I'm not conducting it, so that's where we are. But that, I mean, we haven't been able to get that deep into it because we've ruled out everything that we have control over, and now, I mean, we're just essentially logging it and then trying to
So-
use Livewire to monitor when it happens to see what's happening in the system as it's happening.
In my mind, I know where these points converge at the flex, and that's where I would look. But I was just, it's like most calls, some calls, all calls.
It's random
I know, I
calls.
understand not everything.
It's sporadic calls at sporadic positions, different times of day, all occurring around the 11-minute mark in a call.
So I assume there's an open ticket on this now?
Yes, I hope it's still open.
Touche.
Yeah.
Can you send to Jeff that ticket number so we can do some investigating on that? Because
Yeah.
that strikes me as, I've never heard of a situation like that. So let me go back to the knock and find out, get some more information.
Will do. Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that you say that there's a equipment placement schedule or plan.
Right.
We were on a call not too long ago where somebody asked that question and they were told no, they replace it when it breaks.
Well, it depends on
And it was a
what
critical
part of the,
it was a critical piece for 911.
yeah, it depends on what part of the network you're talking. And so, so I'd have to get real specific on specific parts and what the plan is for specific parts. But, you know, as a function of a complex network, you know, the health of the network has to be taken care of all the time. And so, you know, it's no different than the centers where hardware has to be refreshed and
But it's not comforting to hear you say, hear an employee say, we'll fix it when it breaks.
Well,
When they know
I don't know what situation they're talking about or what their context is. What I'm saying is, you know, we have, and this, again, this isn't a Lumen thing, this is going to be really any network provider. There's going to be an ongoing function to take care of the health of the network and recognizing that technology has to be evolved. Sometimes it's displacing copper resources and going to fiber, and so there's work that we're very aggressively doing that, going from TDM to IP, you know, getting on to more efficient network technologies. That's you know, part of the ongoing function of the network provider.
Okay. Joe, you have your hand up? And
All right,
Kimberly, I
Kathy.
see yours too. Oh, sorry.
Check too.
Hang on, Joe. Jackie, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something to this conversation. Tim Kunkelman, don't have a heart attack. I think as we're renegotiating tariffs, that we really need to be able to look at a more available way to hold Lumen to the fire, so to speak, in the tariff versus what we have. I've heard a lot of talk about the original tariff wasn't strong enough, didn't have enough guardrails, that kind of thing, to help us deal with these issues, maybe with a monetary consequence. So that's why I said don't have a heart attack, Tim. But basically, I'm wondering if Lumen is willing in this new tariff negotiation to add some of those things that look more like a contract into the tariff so that we do have some peace.
You know, so good question. You know, what I'm hearing in the question is you want accountability. And you know, my point of view of that is I have no problem with accountability. You know, we have to work through like in it specific to a tariff or a contract, you know, there's a meeting of the minds that has to happen on what are the words, what is the accountability, and, you know, are you asking the provider to be accountable for things that they can't control, you know, and then, so how do you come together on on that. There's certain accountabilities we have as a function of FCC rules, in terms of outage notification and things like that. Those things are already in place and we're held accountable to. You know, I think, what I understand, you know, I'll go back to the example with my wife. I'm accountable to her. And if I don't live into that accountability, the relationship doesn't work. Yeah, I think, if you feel like that needs to be a part of the conversation, we'll have it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Before going on, I just want to point out, there's a chat from Paula Velasquez in Lake County, said that she was also having problems with calls randomly dropping.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Joe, you still have your hand up?
I do. I'm not an operations person. I've negotiated enterprise contracts or contracts with enterprise customers for telecommunication services. I find it astonishing and totally unacceptable that we have people talking about needing the tariff to be changed, so you'll help us solve the problems. I'm astonished at the number of times that I've been on calls and people from CenturyLink who are supposed to be on the call aren't on the call, or there's a meeting and they're asked for an update and they're not prepared. And so it's till the next month that we get an update. When you look at Colorado as a whole, Colorado 911 as a whole, we're an enterprise level customer. There should be someone at CenturyLink who takes ownership of every issue that arises, make sure that the right resources are addressing it, is able to get technical resources to focus on an issue, not have it come up because we're raising at a special meeting here that we have this problem that's been going on for months that hasn't been resolved yet. CenturyLink needs to put somebody in charge of customer relations to take ownership of problems and to make sure that they're addressed in a timely fashion. And that would go a long ways to resolving a lot of the far past dissatisfaction, anger that people have with CenturyLink.
Joe?
Joe.
So Joe, first, thank you for sharing. And, you know, everything that you said is reasonable. I have no, other than absolutely that's the way we need to work together. If we're making promises, and whatever the venue is, whether it's there's a meeting and we owe an update at a follow-up meeting, I made a couple of promises today that I will honor and I will keep. Or if we just owe information, whether it's a quote or whatever it is, if we're not keeping our promises, that's a problem. And so I'll just be transparent with everybody. So, you know, I come into this conversation and I'm really curious to understand where's the breakdown. So if we're not, when I hear things like Joe is sharing, we're not staying on top of things. As I heard this morning with Wesco that we're not communicating well. You know, we're not giving updates. We're not helping folks see the progress. That's a promise being broken that needs to be fixed. So here's you know the way I'm absorbing the information. So we have at Lumen different, well, in particular, some organizations who are specifically tasked with coordination. So you might know Tracy Dillo. She's in that role. Her role is keep the cats herded. So and she does that very well. But she may not always be plugged into everything that's going on in the state, and that's where I've seen some breakdown. So to Joe's point of having a way of keeping track of things where there's a hierarchy of an individual has an assessment of what's going across all the states so we can make sure communication is happening well. I think that's an enormously fair request, and that's something that actually Jeff and I talked about last night over dinner. So I think there's definite improvement we can do there. But Joe, I'm very sensitive to that there's too many things going on. There's too many opportunities for communication not to happen. And we owe back to Colorado, state of Colorado, a better form of keeping things organized. We do.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Kimberly, go
I
ahead.
think it would be good if we had one person. I know that the PSAPs have a list and you know, where they can raise a level if they're not getting answers or somebody's not available. But that's
Right.
putting the onus on the PSAPs to resolve the problems, to figure out where the problem is. And it would be better if CenturyLink provided us, one contact person who would be responsible for making sure that the right person was addressing the issue and that things weren't being dropped. And there's also project management software available to help your folks do that. But, it's these problems that arise are your problems to solve. They're not for us to solve using the help of your folks. They're for you to take ownership and you to resolve them. That's the point I wanted to make. Thanks.
And that, well said, well said. And so just as maybe a framework or explanation. So when I think about my role, my personal role, Jim Carlson, as a part of a team of folks that include Jeff, we have a responsibility for the customer experience in Colorado. Now, the customer experience in Colorado is really complicated across a lot of areas, like network operations, billing, and so it's not my expectation that Jeff understands everything that's going on in Colorado, because he can't. That's an unachievable expectation. But do I expect that he has visibility across everything, so we know where the hot spots are, we're staying on top of things? Yes. That's my accountability too. So, I'm gonna provide my email, my cell phone. I'm always open to conversations. If anybody feels like they're not being heard or they just want a different point of view on something, there are times when Jeff and I working together on something can get something done quicker than Jeff doing it on his own. So that's my role, to stand behind him as his supervisor and support him in his journey. So, but I think you're right. There has to be an understood hierarchy of visibility across the whole state, so we don't have things that go on for long periods of time that produce all kinds of frustration, and that is not the kind of experience we want to do.
And even getting back to the status report to say, hey, it's been 48 hours, we don't have a solution yet, but this is what we're doing, that would be helpful. It seems to me, from my perspective of listening in on all these meetings, that people just don't hear, and they're pulling their hair out because they don't know what's being done or if the problem's even being addressed.
Fair enough.
No, sorry, I was.
Speaking of pulling hair out.
Yeah.
Well, you can vote.
I know, Kimberly, you've been waiting. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. So just something to perhaps have on the radar for a future ask is maybe some cross-training for your technicians that are going to respond to the PSAPs to work on the NG911 equipment. So much of the troubleshooting can be done remotely, but what we have encountered is when there's times that a truck roll is needed, the Entrado A911 equipment cannot be touched by the CenturyLink technicians. So they arrive on site, but they can't touch and work on that equipment. And so then an Entrado technician has to come out. And so maybe some cross training, some authorization, some work can be done there. So it's a little bit more seamless for us, because that does create a delay. And we've had some discussions in our outage committee, and that becomes very problematic and has created extensive delays because of that.
Yeah, good point. That's, we'll talk to Trotto about that. Yeah, that's a great point.
Like, I was just gonna, just one more thing, just at like the service level.
Sure.
And I'm sure a lot of people have had this. For me, over the last, well, it's happened a lot, but over the last probably 4 weeks, I get calls from PSEPs that are in the authority saying, hey, Lumen's here. Okay, why is Lumen there?
Right.
I don't know. They don't know.
Right.
Okay, then why are they there? Or, most recently, we're trying to get a new circuit in at one of our backups, and the Lumen tech reached out, said, hey, I can be here on this date, can you have somebody there? Yes, we can have somebody there. Somebody's there, he doesn't show up. No call, no, nothing.
Okay.
A little frustrating.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's the same issue, but I did actually the last couple of days see some emails going back and forth on, that communication, when there has to be somebody dispatched and making sure there's proper notification there. So that is enormously reasonable. And so we'll connect the dots on how that conversation went, but, it's not good to waste people's time, and it's not good to surprise people, especially in a 911 center. So that's a fair.
Well, and a lot of times when you guys are there, we have to have our vendor there.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So,
It's not just one company coordinating one
Right.
group, it's
Right.
multiple, absolutely.
That is systemic, that issue.
Okay.
Every
We
one
can
of us
make note of that.
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Sure, no problem. Bill Baker, I'm with Grand Junction Police Department.
Nice to meet you, Bill.
Meet you. Thanks for being here. I'm usually on the backside and listening to all of this, either pre-recorded or when Cindy gets back from the center. The overwhelming frustration I take and listening to a lot of the meetings. So thank you for being here, because that's the first step. I expect us to have a good relationship with Lumen, and Lumen to have a high level of care and that same level that every one of my ECSs in there. Phones aren't working, or it's auto dialing and going crazy because of old copper, but that's on the business side, not the PSAP, and trying to get that one person at ECS on that console to be able to handle the calls, is frustrating. So I was glad to hear Jeff talking about on the business line side when they're coming in, working to throw that under that kind of, customer care that we should get. The one thing that I would say, though, is I'm pretty sure I could speak for all of us, that for that 911 type system, everything that, in most centers that you'll see, there's a primary and then we have a redundancy and a tertiary to make sure that those 911 calls are coming in no matter what. And I can tell you that time that I have been my policing career, 30 years, I've never seen any of our cell providers or any of the other network type providers ever go down of our 911. Ever. And for the most serious need of an organization is to get those calls in, be able to communicate with somebody first day.
Right.
Be like that level, like it just should be such an anomaly, 911 system go down where you cannot receive, or it has to get rolled over to somebody else. It seems like that should be just a unicorn occurrence happening where we have so many failures, we had a gigantic flood, something like that where I understand it.
Right.
The other thing is, when those things do happen, there is so much frustration on trying to, what's going on now? Whether it's the next day, 2 days later, 3 days later, just to have that finality of, we found the problem, man, our bad, that was a switch of ours. The other problem that we have a lot of times is this. It's not us. Well, come to find out it actually was, but we didn't take the time to troubleshoot enough, get that in there it could have been solved 4 days ago if we just don't try to push that off on, no, it's this vendor or that vendor. And sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it's one of the other systems other than Lumen. But to have that that care on the front side and that mutual respect for it might not be ours. But I'm gonna help you figure that out on day one when you're 911 having issues before 3 days later.
Right.
So, that's all I have to say.
Well, just to put a finer point on that, what Joe was saying earlier, it feels like it's our responsibility to determine if it's Lumen's problem
Yeah.
rather than Lumen.
Mhm.
I think that is a common experience.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
write that down.
Own it.
And I'm,
I
yeah.
hear you. I hear you.
And Daryl wants to add one more thing. I'm just gonna say we're at almost, well, 1:45, and I know we have a 1 o'clock. So, that's with the GIS,
So
so.
before we do that, I want to respond to
Okay.
just something
Sure.
that Bill said. So, so thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. And, you know, when you look at let's say something breaks, whatever it is, the root cause of it can be in different areas. It could be in the connectivity to the PSAP. So we're all working together on fortifying those connections to the PSAPs and having dual vendor connections. One's Lumen, one's maybe a Comcast. So we'll have that dual redundancy going to the PSAP, which is a big positive. Now, a breakdown can happen in other parts of the network, and, you know, part of it could be on inter-office routes, and so we're doing work there to fortify those systems with new fiber runs and things like that. So I think that'll be positive. On the experience of just when something breaks and not getting information, or you all feeling like Lumen is saying, hey, it's not my problem, you all have to push, that's a problem. So, I'm teeing up a long conversation I'll have with our internal team about things like that, like tickets being closed and communication and, I don't know, like with communication, I don't know if there's a possibility to get to the ultimate state where it's perfect all the time, but certainly better than what it is now, in measurable ways. And so that's what we have to have happen.
I'll be very brief because I know we're running out of time, but this is the escalation chart that we have. So the commission rules require an escalation chart. So the first thing that has to happen with a PSAP manager is having a problem, they got to figure out which of these 5 categories the problem fits into.
Yeah.
And then if they call the first one and they don't get resolution, they call the second.
Yeah.
So kind of building on what Jackie and Joe were saying, if there were one contact that they could call and that person is responsible for navigating this
Yeah.
and managing the escalation if it doesn't get solved through the first contact, I think that would potentially relieve a lot of the friction.
That's a really good point.
And if that were built into the tariff, great. If it needs to be in a future iteration of PUC rules, or if it's just something that you guys decide to do, I think that would probably relieve a lot of the friction.
Well, so I'll let Jeff take note of that, and we'll go back and talk about it. Here's what I will say. My motivation is to improve the experience of public safety professionals in Colorado. That, what you're just describing there sounds really confusing, and confusing doesn't tend to help things. So anything we can do to simplify that, whether it's a call first and then let them triage behind, I think that's part of the customer experience that I'm accountable for, I can control. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that.
And online, Tina said, please establish a clear threshold requiring mandatory escalation.
Okay.
So having that, if this, then it gets automatically escalated.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I will say, just as a general rule, please call me if you have a question or concern about something. Call me. And I'll make sure you have my cell phone.
And just to note, you are not on this escalation chart right now. I don't think so. Oh, there he is. There he is. Okay. It's under sales.
No,
There we go.
that's microscopic.
All right.
So when do y'all get together again?
Next meeting is September 11th.
September 11th.
But the ESNet Users Group meeting is before that in August.
Okay, where's the meeting on the 11th?
El Paso Teller in Colorado Springs.
Yep, Colorado Springs.
If I can make it work, do you mind if I come back? Then we can.
That'd be great.
What I'd like to do, this is a theme that, I tell my team all the time, is you have to show progress. You gotta show progress. So we talked internally about having a survey instrument it's a quick survey, a small amount of questions that we might ask everybody, and then, you know, we're working on the things that we're working on, and then maybe 3 months later, another really quick survey, not 100 questions, maybe less than 5 or less than 10, where we can, like, look and see if that we're making progress. Ultimately, progress is you all saying progress. And so I'd love to come back and sit in front of you all and continue on with this conversation and, you know, continue work to make things better. So thank you all, appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Just due to time constraints, Jeff, I think I'm gonna skip project management, changes.
I would agree, and if anybody that's on here that wasn't on the ESNet user group, they can go back and listen to the recording of that, because he presented on that information.
Okay, perfect.
And that meeting should most likely be posted by the end of the week, tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. The next thing that I have in new business is we have some vacant positions. We have a vacant position for ILEC in this particular group. And then we have a vacant resource center board position, the task force chair position, and the outage committee chair position. So I know, Jennifer, you had sent out an email about the chair, right, for this task force?
And just to clarify, the bylaws do state that in the event of a chair vacancy, the vice chair needs to move up. But Kathy has said, I don't want to speak for you.
Kathy has said that there is a lot on her plate.
Kathy is right here and can speak for herself.
And I'm going to say it again, that there is a lot on my plate, and I would encourage someone else to step up and take the chair position.
And I would assume that would only be for the remainder of this year until you then did become the chair through normal processes.
So September's meeting and November's meeting.
So just 2 meetings.
I would be willing to do that for only this year.
2 meetings? Thank you, Carl. Okay, so the task force chair position has been... Oh, we need a motion.
I move that Carl.
Here? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign.
You hear a train, Carl?
Yeah, exactly.
Train, what are you talking about?
He flagged it down.
Okay, so
Thank you,
Carl will take it for the next 2. Thank you very much. I
For
appreciate
the next
that.
2 years, you said?
2 years, yeah. So it goes now. And were we supposed to have somebody possibly on the call for the ILEC for this?
So Tina Powell has reached out and has contacted and gotten affirmative that someone for the ILEC position. However, I don't know that they're on the call.
Yeah, this is Jason Hendricks with Range, and I'm on the call. I'm the person.
Perfect. So Jason, would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm with Range. We provide service in 4-state region, including Colorado. We're in Moffett, Routt County in Colorado. I've been in the industry 29 years. I do government relations work and working on 911 stuff in other states, and just looking forward to being being considered for this task force.
All right, thank you. So we need a motion.
We do need a motion.
Okay, and
This is,
Jason, just to clarify, you're providing landline service in those counties?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
this is
Okay,
Kimberly,
so
and,
we need-
and I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Kimberly. We need a second.
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. You got it, Jason.
Great. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Okay, so that took care of 2, Resource Center Board position. I think Mr. Dameron is, bowing out for one reason or another.
Well, so, yeah, with the enterprise board exploring the opportunity to partner with the resource resource center on some things. It's great being on both boards, so.
Yeah. That's the problem with having such a
I know.
small,
Yeah.
So is it a particular position, or just a board member?
So
I was serving as board president.
Andrew was serving as board president, but that does not mean that his replacement on the board would have to be president. At the next Resource Center board meeting, we would probably reshuffle the officer positions. To be on the board, you just have to be appointed by this group, the task force. You do not have to be a voting member of the task force. So I wanted to point that out because that makes a big difference on how many people we have to choose from.
And it's just, I mean, it's a great opportunity to kind of take on, a position that allows you to kind of support the state as a whole. So there's a lot of great work that the Resource Center is doing that is very focused on how we support all four corners of Colorado. So anybody who's even vaguely interested in doing it, I really encourage you to.
And I want to point out that you would be filling the rest of Andrew's term, which ends at the end of 2026. So this would be about a 1.5 year commitment.
Any takers? Oh, Deanie, go ahead.
I'm going to ask her to do it.
I would be willing to take that on from Andrew.
Okay. Deanie is willing. So, I need a motion.
I move that Beanie take over for the next 1.5 years.
Okay, second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Oh, there we go. Sorry, the ayes in the positive have it. So, way to go, Deanie. Yay. Okay. and
Welcome,
then-
Deanie.
Yes, welcome, Deanie. And then the last thing we have is the outage committee chair. This was also a chair that Tina, was a part of, and she's had to back away from both this committee and that one. So, Daryl, you probably work with that person more than anybody, so what are the
Yeah,
commitments?
so the investigations are generally done by commission staff. So the outage committee chair doesn't have to do the investigations themselves. If there's ever an incident that the outage committee wants to review that does not fall under the staff-led investigation criteria, the outage committee could do that, but I don't think that ever has come up yet. The primary duty of the outage committee chair is they will speak for the outage committee regarding staff-led investigation. So for instance, at the beginning of an investigation, I send out copies, the initial form of the investigation out to the outage committee to see if the outage committee has any other questions that they would like to ask. If there are questions, then it's the outage committee's chair to collect those from the members and basically put them in a rational format to get them to me. If there is a request for a meeting to discuss an outage further during an outage investigation, then it's the outage committee chair that requests that on behalf of the outage committee members. So those are the primary duties of the outage committee chair, unless there's additional things that the committee would like to do.
Okay, with all that information from Daryl, anybody be interested in the outage committee chair? No, 3 out of 4. Yep. All right, well, we'll have to push that off Carl for the next one. There you go, yeah.
Are you nominating Carl for the outage committee chair?
No, you can handle it at this
I
next.
believe I could appoint chairs.
Yeah.
You can.
Yep.
And that is, the chairperson of this committee can actually, or this task force can actually appoint chairs, but Kathy was being nice by asking her volunteers.
Yeah. All right, well, we got 3 out of 4, that's good, 75%. All right, I think that's all we have. We'll move that to the next meeting agenda. Our next meeting,
It's up on the screen.
oh,
So we have lots of lunch and learns coming up.
yep,
We have GIS sessions coming up, and our next task force meeting is September 11th in El Paso Teller 911 Authority in Colorado Springs. And I would just like to say on behalf of the task force, thank you to Tina Powell for her service as vice chair last year and chair this year.
Yeah. Yep, we appreciate that.
I have one other quick item for new business.
Well,
Up to you.
yeah, go ahead.
Super fast, and I'll just email this out, so we'll push it out. Long story short, Colorado Bureau of Investigation is creating a new committee within the Board of Working Advisors. These are the folks who give CBI feedback on CCIC and how it works, what the interface is like. 911 has historically not had great representation as a part of that. This new committee is designed to resolve that. So we are hosting the first meeting of this committee in September. I'll push the details out, but it's an opportunity to actually advise CBI on CCIC. I'll send those details.
That's great.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, I think that's it. So with that said,
So the GIS series is scheduled to start at 1, but we've got lunch in the room and we need to set up. It's also on a different Zoom link. So I'm gonna close this Zoom link and open the GIS series and we'll get set up for that.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Okay, second SK. We are adjourned at 1:02 PM. Thank you, everybody.
That was Matt and Andrew.
Yeah,
The
Matt
first
and
and second.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Card.
All right.
I'm gonna roll
All right,
home.